I sometimes look back on our old what-ifs we've made over this long time we've spent together and say, if only Sasuke had done this, or what if Naruto took that path? I receive topics from you all every day and each one is meaningful. But for now, I want to focus on something else. I receive these topics all the time, and rattling around in my brain are so many different outcomes and stories that I often gotta pick and choose what is the best outcome. But now I'm wondering if I really need to do that. If I have multiple stories for a single theme, how do you peeps not deserve to hear all of them? And that's why I'm proud to announce a new series of what-ifs, tentatively titled Redux. Tentatively because I might think of a better name later. I'm certain that many of you know how the original story went. If not, we'll link it somewhere for you to watch. But now I plan to tell a new story. So sit back, let's see what would have happened if Naruto had the Rinnegan. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. There was darkness, only darkness, endless and eternal. What was this place? Was this place death? No, this wasn't death per se. Well, for one, it might be the beginnings of death, but for another, this might be the start of life. So what was this place, truly? What was this place between existences? What was this liminal space that connected the life with the afterlife? What was this place that stood as Jacob's ladder, descending and ascending through this purgatory? These were questions for you and I, questions for those passing through who had understanding. The wizened men and women of ages long past flowed through here, and as their spirits ascended, they could see something else. Fresh spirits descending from on high, each one innocent and without blame, without understanding, impressionable and spotless. But one soul seemed to be coming down through here again. This was not the first time it had been up or down. It wasn't even the second time. I would be hard-pressed to believe it to be the third time as well. This soul, trapped forever in a constant revolving door of life, death, and life again. This little orange ball of giggles and joy just did as it was led to do. Memories wiped, it went into the tumbler again to experience this thing called life once more. But among the thousands and thousands of souls that passed through this area heading toward new life, a single hand reached to grab this one and this one only. The little orange orb was confused. Why was it out of the flow? Had it fallen out? Was it now forever lost to roll around, abandoned and alone? No, wait. What was this feeling? It was so warm. There was music too. A drum. No, a heart. A heartbeat. It had no eyes, no ears, no nose, but it was not without senses. Who held it? An elderly man, old and wizened, his hair a light brown and his face completely overrun with wrinkles, the scars of time left to prove the experience that life had bequeathed to him, held the little orange orb in his arms. Looking down, he ran his hand along it. He could sense that it didn't understand what was happening, only that something had changed and that change was not scripted. "Don't worry," the old man said as his ringed eyes looked down upon the soul with empathy and love. "I won't hold you for long. I simply wanted to take you up in my arms, my child. Oh, how I've missed you. I watched you every day and I will continue to watch you. I will wait here in the aether for you so that as you pass up and back down, we may have it. Our treasured singular day once every 50 to 100 years. He gave it a light kiss. "It seems like almost yesterday that your brother passed through here, Ashura. He's down there too, waiting for you. I wish he would accept me once again. I seem like only a burden to him these days, avoided by the wizened soul and an annoyance to the blank slate he becomes every cycle. But no matter how many times we meet, how many faces, names, and personas you take, I always see you the same way. You meet me with such kindness and joy, and this is not because you subconsciously recognize me, no. That's because this is who you are." The old man looked around the area about him, as if something were there that he could not see. Already? Time is up. I wait centuries for what seems like only a few minutes of interaction. Oh well, maybe one day your brother and you will make amends, and if so, perhaps you will finally end the cycle you've trapped yourselves in. Oh, how I long for it. Hagoromo sat there silently for a minute longer as he thought. Maybe I can do something different this time. Maybe I can give you one more tool to save your brother with. I pray this will be the last time we must go through this cycle. 1,000 years is too long to hold a grudge, no? Hagoromo would hold the orb up and begin to radiate his own chakra into it. Let the flames of my chakra burn on forever within you. Let your birth mark the start of an era of peace. The little orange orb glowed even brighter and giggled as if it tickled. This brought the biggest grin to Hagoromo's face. One day, when this is all over, you and I and your brother will also finally see what this heaven business is all about. You'll both walk me in together. He kissed the orb and once more lowered it into the endless stream of spirits heading toward the material plane. A tear formed in his eye as he watched it. It hurts so much to let your child go, he said. There, a hand reached out and rested on his shoulder. I understand the feeling, Sakumo Hatake said. Maybe not as well as you do, but I recall it myself. I thought honor might make me happy, might make him proud, but all it did was leave a scar only I can see. And until that scar heals, I will remain here in purgatory with you, Sage. Until all of our scars are healed. The sage watched as the little orb passed into the light. Yes, until all of our scars are healed. A set of lungs on him, Biwako Sarutobi said. She pulled the babe up, swallowed it, and delivered it like a little present. She delivered the infant to its mother, who waited and attempted to just keep breathing. Minato only now was finishing the seal. He would then lock down Kurama. There, now let me see my boy, he said. Yeah, no, that wasn't happening. Biwako pushed right by him to give it to Kushina. When you push a 7-pound human being out of your body, then you can be the first to see it, Lord Forth. Minato marveled at this woman. She was but a nurse, and yet she had shut him down so quickly. The most powerful man in the entire land of fire, but then again, she had practice. She had in times past shut down Hiruzen like this, so Minato, young and experienced, didn't possess enough wit to even dare stand up against her. Compared to her, he felt like a kite in the wind, blowing wherever her whims pushed him. He supposed that the same strength existed within Kushina as well, but she so rarely used it against him. Why was that? Perhaps it was because they were both a single unit, so perfectly unified that they shared the same opinions down to the finest detail. Minato relented. This was Kushina's moment, and he would not take it away. To even be present at all was a blessing. He felt as if he had hit the cosmic lottery when he was told that Naruto would be born this night. He was between two world meetings. Having returned from Kusagakure, he was preparing for a visit to Kumo in the upcoming days and feared he would miss it. But not now. A true blessing. A true blessing indeed. Kushina looked up at Minato. Minato, her voice said in a voice hardly above a whisper, the effect of having screamed your lungs out for the past hour. I need some water. Do you have any water? Minato nodded. Of course, Kushina. He turned away for only a moment to grab the water. He popped the top and took a sip himself to settle his stomach. Only now did he realize he was a hair widths away from puking. With that done, he turned back to give the water to Kushina, but before he could, he dropped it, spilling it upon the ground. There was blood. So much blood. Nurses strewn about, and laying on the table or reaching up behind her was Kushina. Minato followed her gaze and saw a masked man standing there with the baby. Minato pulled a kunai. The man shook his head. Nah-uh-uh. I wouldn't if I were you, Lord Forth. Minato looked over at Kushina. He softened his stance a bit. Put the kunai down, the masked individual said. Minato did so. Good. Now kick it away. Minato went to kick it toward the masked man when the man spoke again. No. Kick it behind you, toward the door. Minato was caught by this request. Did the man know about the flying Raijin, or was it coincidence? Minato did as commanded and kicked it away. Now, I suggest that Miss Kushina gets up and comes to me. She can't, Minato said. She just had a baby. There's no way she could walk right now. A single ruby burned from behind the mask's single orifice. She either gets up and walks to me, or this child will die. Minato tried to reason with the man, all while readying a second kunai he had not yet divulged was in his hand. When communications broke down, the man threw Naruto up into the air and planned to stab him. It was then that Minato threw his kunai at the man. The man would dodge out of the way. Minato would use his flying Raijin jutsu to teleport to his kunai and catch Naruto before turning to face the men. However, by the time he had turned, he realized that the man and Kushina were both gone. This was another diversion though, as the baby's wrappings were covered in explosive tags. Minato ripped this off and threw it to the side before teleporting out with flying Raijin to their home. Appearing there, he put the baby down on the bed and covered it once more. He gave it a quick once-over to ensure it was healthy and then turned around to leave. Normally, he wouldn't consider leaving a newborn all by itself, but these circumstances called for it. It would most likely be safe. Nobody knew where this house was except Hiruzen and a few others. Then again, that didn't mean jack, because nobody but Hiruzen and a few others knew where Kushina was planned to give birth at all. He had to trust that Naruto would be safe. After all, they were here for Kushina, not Naruto. And so Minato left to find Kushina and rescue her. As he left, the baby, now having cried itself into a dozing slumber, rested there. He didn't know how long he was there. He had no clue how to tell. He was, after all, only an hour old. This was literally his birthday. Some way to come into the world, Sakumo said as he and Hagoromo watched from their place in the heavens. Hagoromo sighed. It's not like it's ever been any different. My son's birth has always been traumatic, no matter which incarnation. Hashirama was born during the age of warring states. His mother gave birth to him on the battlefield. The sounds of explosions and death were his lullabies. My son is always upbeat, but death follows him wherever he goes. I'm hoping he'll be able to make use of my gift to somehow make his life better. They continued to watch. Naruto laid there. Eventually, a sudden burst of wind and a crack of thunder could be felt and heard. Minato had returned, and now he held Kushina in his arms. She was in such bad shape. She was hardly conscious anymore. She was weak. He laid her in the bed with Naruto and turned around, heading for the door. He needed to get to Konoha ASAP. He would leave. As Kushina cuddled the infant, she lamented that she would not get to live long enough to see him grow older. Holding him close, she pressed him against her chest to share what little body heat she had. There it is again, the infant said within itself, its words not of any language man could speak, but of the universal language in one's own heart. The language of emotions, concepts speaking together like music that only Naruto could hear. What could this be? Drums. It's drums. No, it's thunder. No, what is it? Bump, 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 bump. He felt it and heard it more. It's music, but it's out of rhythm. It's so weak. Why would anyone play their drums like this? It was cacophony to the infant, but then it realized what it had forgotten. No, wait, this is a heart. This is Mama's heart. Why is it so weak? He opened his little eyes to display the rings within. To the infant, it was all a blur. It was impossible to tell what he was looking at. Regardless, he sensed a chakra. It was so weak. He heard the breathing. It was weak. His mother was so weak. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was divine revelation. Whatever you believed it to be, it was happening now. Naruto's little hand reached out and placed itself against his mother's chest, over her heart. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, he utilized his yin-yang release. He was but an infant, a child. But he was an Uzumaki, the reincarnation of Ashura and a possessor of the Rinnegan. He had just enough to tell Death that it was not to step in on her. Kushina felt the relief immediately. She opened her eyes cautiously. She didn't feel quite as strong as when Kurama were within her, no, but she didn't feel as weak as she had moments earlier. Her chakra was balancing out, but whatever she'd been relying upon to stay alive was suddenly changed. The rules dictated that a Jinchuriki of the Ninetales must die if the beast were to ever be removed. That was the rule. But somehow, the rules had just changed. Someone had just overwritten the rules. She couldn't explain it, but she looked down at the child. She was in awe. Kurama hadn't been the only thing within her to come out, and now that other thing was sharing some of its power with her. But how could one possess such power? She was confused. She saw it seem to fall asleep on her, tuckered out and tired from the exchange of chakra. For a moment, Kushina feared it had died, but keeping it close, she realized that it had not. It was as strong as ever, merely sleeping. Once more, she began to coddle it, giving it a little chakra as well, balancing out, ensuring that they both had enough to survive. Suddenly, there was a crash, and most of the home was blown away. Kushina covered Naruto. They skid along the ground, tumbling and rolling. They would come to a stop where Kushina would begin checking Naruto for injury. He was okay. It seemed she had taken most of the injuries. She felt like a few ribs were cracked, but what was a little more pain when she had just pushed out a baby? She found a safe place to put Naruto and laid him there, hiding him. Ironically, there was a small fox den under a tree nearby, and that is where she would place him. Ripping the hem of her skirt, she would tie it around the tree branch to mark the location of the den. She then turned to face the Ninetales with her husband. Kushina, Minato asked in awe. How are you even standing? She shook her head. I can't explain it, but I'm not as weak as I was before. I'm not dying anymore. Well, praise God for that. Go guard Naruto. I'll deal with the Ninetales. Kushina shook her head. No, the Ninetales is my responsibility, and as an Uzumaki, I am the only one who knows how to properly seal it inside of me. So just keep him distracted, and I'll begin the ritual. Minato couldn't argue with his wife, and so he simply obliged. He would rush toward Kurama, utilizing his many jutsu to keep the beast's attention. All the while, Kushina would begin sealing. She would use her adamantine chains to cover the area in a dome, creating a barrier. Kurama had not noticed it yet. He was too busy facing Minato. Once this was done, Kushina opened her shirt to expose the 8 trigram seal. Ugh, it's completely ruined, she said as she looked at the warped symbols. The masked man had not been careful with the seal. He hadn't dared attempt to crack the code to the vault where the beast was stored. Instead, he had completely broken it. She would begin the process of replacing the seal with a new one. Given that she was a bit more experienced in these things, she was able to craft a seal even stronger than the last one. Once she was ready, she would fire out her adamantine chains at Kurama, which would grab him. At the very least, he had a single chain for each tail, though Kushina would later attempt to chain up not only the tip, but the base of each tail. A few around his legs, his waist, and one around his throat. With this, she managed to choke off a roar and a tailed beast ball before it could fully form, causing the half-finished attack to explode in Kurama's face. With him dazed, she began to pull him to her. Minato would teleport in. He saw that she was struggling though, so he began to funnel what was left of his chakra reserves into her to give her more strength. The beast attempted to claw and stop itself, attempting once more to cry out in rage before Kushina also chained up its snout. She kept pulling until suddenly she began to bring it into her. She then began to take extra chakra from Kurama with which to boost the seal. Minato thought it was ingenious. She was using her tailed beast to seal away her tailed beast. She was making a prison out of its own chakra. Kurama himself noticed this and thought how humiliating it was, not only to be sealed inside of a human, but to have his own power used against him. If only he had killed her when he had the chance. She pulled him in. As soon as this was done, the seal on her stomach spun in circles, each circle and layer spinning in different directions until symbols like chains covered the seal. She hit her knees. Minato came to her side. "Kushina!" She took his hand and gasped a breath as her face was twisted in anguish. It's okay, Minato. Kurama's just really angry. His hatred, Minato kissed her cheek. "It's gonna be okay. Remember our exercises, alright? What's the opposite of hate? Love." Minato nodded. "Love. You, me, and our little baby. We're a family. You're surrounded and loved, bathed in it, wrapped up and clothed in it. My life is dedicated to you and our child, so take a breath. Kurama may be more hateful now than ever, but you have more love now than ever." Kushina nodded. She looked up into the skies and took a deep breath and let it out with a sigh as her body seemed to relax. She smiled and laid her head against Minato's chest. Minato would lift her up and bring her to the tree in which he would lay her down. In the den. Naruto's in the den." Minato would reach in and feel a cloth covering. He would pull the tiny child out and into his arms. For as many loud noises that had just rung through the heavens, and for as much earth-shattering action they'd all had to face, the babe wasn't crying. Heck, Minato felt half ready to cry about the previous events, but Naruto seemed to be at peace, and somehow that brought peace to Minato. He would deliver the child to his wife. Placing the baby in her arms, he would hold on to them in a hug. He took a second to rest, catching his breath. He wasn't done yet though. He would wrap his arms tight around them and then rise to one knee. He would utilize Flying Raijin to get them back to Konoha. He would then lift Kushina up into his arms as she held Naruto. He would rush to the hospital where they'd both be admitted. Minato himself would receive a little treatment from overexertion, but he was mostly fine, and even better still, Kushina and Naruto were declared to be perfectly healthy. Minato would then survey the damage done. The casualties were so many that a hard number so far could not be determined, and every hour more survivors were found. In the days after, more bodies would be discovered too. It was sad to Minato, as it could not be known if these people died because the Nine Tails had killed them, or if they had died waiting to be rescued. One of the worst things he had to do was tell his predecessor and mentor Hiruzen that Biwako wasn't coming home. Of course, Hiruzen expected as much, as she was there the moment the Nine Tails escaped. All in all, Hiruzen handled it well, but as Minato looked deep into the man's eyes, he could tell that a part of him had died. Minato attempted not to bring such things home with him, but it was hard to do. When you were equal parts husband, father, shinobi, and Hokage, it was impossible for there not to be any overlap. Kushina would comfort her husband, telling him it wasn't his fault. "But Kushina, I chose our son over our village, and people died. A good Hokage would have sacrificed one life to protect the village's most dangerous asset." She nods. "Yes, but a good father would move heaven and earth to save his child. You're many things, Minato, and not always will these things agree with each other. You can't hold on to the split-second actions you took without time to think. Instead, be grateful that your wife and child are still alive, and pray for those who don't have it as easy." Minato nodded. "I am. That's why it hurts so bad. That's because your heart is enormous, Minato. You suffer with your village, and that itself is proof that you're a good Hokage. Don't let it get to you." Kushina stood. "Why don't you go spend some time with Naruto? I bet that'll help you remember your blessings." Minato nodded and stood up. He made it to the baby's room. There Naruto was, in a little orange jumper. It was so adorable. His hair was the same color as Minato's. The babe was asleep in a crib. Minato watched the child sleep. It had been told to him that there was something different about the child. During examination, the doctors noted that the baby had strange eyes unlike any on record. It had been believed by the Uchiha that these were the Rinnegan, though they were unsure how they manifested into Naruto. Some wondered if maybe he were the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths, or perhaps if he were the byproduct of genetics that were somehow hidden within the genome of both Kushina and Minato. Whatever it was unknown. The people believed this to be a sign. Some said that it was a sign that Naruto would one day lead to their village's salvation. Others believed that he may one day lead to the village's annihilation. Minato, though, he didn't think either of those things. When he looked into his son's eyes, he didn't see a creator or a destroyer. He simply saw his son, and knew that he would do the best he could to train up his child the way he should, to teach him to be a proper man, good, kind, and just. In the months afterward, the fallout from the village's assault was still being felt. Remnants of scars plagued the village and caused distrust within communities. This led to a proposition that the Uchiha's placement in the village should be changed. The proposed spot of the new Uchiha compound was on the edge of the village. Of course, Fugaku did not appreciate this, and frankly, Minato didn't either. They both knew that this was a ploy, a punishment, a way of saying to the Uchiha that they were no longer a true part of the village. When Fugaku spoke up, Minato supported him. He showed that the area, while vacant, was far from prime real estate, and the prestigious Uchiha clan deserved far more respect than the piece of land would have offered them. And so Minato turned to Fugaku and told him to choose for himself where he wanted the Uchiha's new compound to be. Fugaku chose a place in the center of the village. This upset Danzo, but he said nothing about it until after the meeting. Minato would ratify the new placement of the Uchiha's home and would congratulate them, telling them that after the village was cleaned up, they were free to return to their old compound or remain in the new one, whichever they decided. This caused Fugaku to regain respect for Konoha's leadership and felt as if Konoha truly could value their presence. Minato would explain to Fugaku the reason why people were suspicious of the Uchiha and why it was that Konoha was cautious in their deployment of the night of the attack. Fugaku was still sore about it, but Minato informed him that not only had the Sharingan's reflection been seen within Kurama's eye, but Minato himself had fought against a Sharingan user, the same who had attempted to use the beast against the village. He told him that due to his own eyewitness testimony, he could mostly clear the Uchiha, but there were still some who believed this to be an inside ploy, and that those feelings, especially in the bitterness after the deaths and destruction of so many people and places, were only natural. People needed closure. They needed some place to be. They needed somewhere to place the blame, to feel as if they had gotten justice, and that so long as the perpetrator was on the loose, people would search for a scapegoat. It wasn't anything personal, it was just the way people reacted when their hearts were in so much pain. Fugaku hated that his clan was being blamed, but Minato's words forced him to put himself in the shoes of someone else, and that caused his wrath to further waver. Honestly, Fugaku had to say that Minato was a true leader, and a man with a tongue as sharp as any blade. The Uchiha were all such emotionally vulnerable people, and so often they could fall into a self-pitying hole. But Minato had forced Fugaku to view the situation through the eyes of others, causing him to understand how they could see things the way they did. And so Fugaku took that back with him to the clan's meetings in the Naka Shrine, and due to Minato's words, his dedication to listening, and offering proper respect, they decided to trust him to smooth things out, and the idea of a coup was put to rest. Danzo, however, approached Minato not long after, telling him he thought it was dangerous to put a clan as unruly as the Uchiha in the center of the village. After all, if Minato was wrong and the Uchiha were truly behind this, the entire village could be at risk with the perpetrators at its very heart. But Minato silenced Danzo and began to try to work his point of view into agreeing with Minato and admitting that what he had done was the best course of action. Listen, I understand what you mean, but you have to remember, it was my wife that was attacked, and I fought with and spoke with the one responsible for this, and I can verify that it was not any Uchiha registered in Konoha's current database. Just because they had a Sharingan doesn't mean that it's an Uchiha. It simply means that someone, likely during the Third Shinobi World War, pilfered a few Sharingan. After all, we found the bodies of many blinded Uchiha during the war. It's not impossible. It's even probable that it was someone from the outside. But even still, if the Uchiha did do it, then it wouldn't be such a bad idea to keep them at the center of the village. That way we can keep a better eye on them. At the edge of the village, they can do whatever they want, but in the heart, every eye will be on them and they won't be able to do anything. Danzo hated to admit that Minato's point of view made a lot of sense. Fine, we will do things your way, but if anything goes wrong, I will hold you personally responsible, and see to it that you're removed from office, Lord Namikaze. Nothing happened. The Uchiha clearly were not to blame, and with this loyalty that Minato had shown them, they'd become just as fiercely loyal to him. While the village had been horribly damaged by the Nine-Tails attack, every day Konoha was getting stronger, and it was all due to the leadership of Minato. However, one bad did come from this. Minato had missed his meeting with Kumogakure. He had been planning to go in the time after Naruto's birth, but with the village under attack and Minato having overexerted himself, it was just time for him to rest and focus on rebuilding. But due to him not being able to go to Kumo, and likely also because of the attack on the village making them look weak, Kumo re-entered their hot stage of the war, bringing battle back into the world once more and continuing an old conflict that had seemingly drawn to a close. But Minato, the Uchiha, and the best that the Hidden Leaf had to offer led to Kumo being pushed back. Eventually, Kumo would recognize that the war was not going anywhere and was merely going to cost them in the long run. They considered a peace treaty. But something more than this, there was a secret greed in the heart of Kumo. They were a very powerful nation, but they were cunning as well. They wanted to begin stockpiling Kekai Genkai to understand how they worked in hopes that they could maybe transplant such techniques into their own people. Building of super weapons and stockpiling of power, they were truly the biggest threat to Konoha right now, and that was obvious. So when the Raikage offered peace talks, Minato decided that it would be best to hear them out. Kumo would send their ambassadors to Konoha to begin peace talks, and they were mostly productive. Finally, it began to seem that the last embers of the Third Shinobi World War might burn out, and Konoha would finally have peace. That was until that night. Minato was lying in bed next to his wife when he received a call. The phone rang and awakened him from his slumber. Sitting up, he looked at it and answered.
What is it?
On the other side was the somewhat frantic voice of Hiyashi Hyuga. Lord Fourth, we have a problem at the Hyuga compound. We need you to come immediately. Minato sighed. I'll be there in a second. He hung up the phone and returned it to its place. What is it? Kushina would ask, obviously drowsy herself. Something's going on at the Hyuga compound. I need to go check it out. Just go back to sleep, Ku. I'll be back shortly. Minato would grab his gear and throw his Yondaime Hokage Haori over his flak jacket and make his way to the Hyuga compound. He walked through the gate, remembering that just earlier in the day they had celebrated Hinata's 3rd birthday here. As soon as he entered the place, he would see Hiyashi standing there, holding Hinata in his arms. Minato would notice that there was a dead body nearby. He would walk to Hiyashi and kneel down. Are you okay? Hiyashi nodded. Both me and Hinata are okay. Minato let out a sigh of relief. That's good. He looked at the body. Would you like to tell me what happened? Hiyashi nodded. It was the middle of the night. I was awoken by the sound of my daughter screaming. I rushed outside to see an unknown assailant attempting to flee with her over the wall. I rushed out and without a second thought shut down his entire chakra pathway system by attacking the never-ending in his solar plexus. I rescued my daughter and removed the mask of the assailant to see it was who? Minato asked. It was the ambassador sent by Kumo. Minato suddenly hit full understanding. Those lying bastards. This wasn't about peace. This was a spy mission. Minato put his hand on Hiyashi's shoulder. Don't worry, this will all be okay. I'll be sure of it. He looked down at Hinata and put his hand on her shoulder. It's all okay now, Hinata. Everything's okay. After that, Minato would pack up the body of the Kumo ambassador and send it back. At first, Kumo attempted to pin blame on Konoha, insinuating that this was some sort of ploy and would result in the continuation of the war unless justice was delivered. Minato would tell them that the Kumonin attacked one of the many sovereign leaders of Konoha's prestigious clans, and that this was, in fact, an act of war. He threatened that he would not rest until Kumo was a smoldering crater. He told the Raikage to test him, reminding him of what happened during the Third Shinobi World War, how Minato single-handedly killed over 1,000 Iwanin all on his own, and how he had outsped both A and his brother B during battle, with their lives being in his hands. He reminded the Raikage that he spared them, but next time he would spare nothing and no one. He told the Raikage that the only way for him to get out of this was to accept the peace treaty. After a few days of deliberation, Kumo sent back word that they were ready to sign the treaty. Minato would in turn sign it as well. He would inform the Raikage that he was lucky that nobody in Konoha was killed, otherwise Minato would not be signing a treaty but instead a death warrant. With this finished, peace returned to Konoha, and Minato was finally able to take time off to spend with his family. Naruto slowly grew until one day he would be admitted to the academy for teaching. Minato was certain that Naruto would become something great. His eyes were proof, and already they had changed so much. A simple action saved Kushina and Minato's life, and that cascaded into something that could have gone 1,000 other ways. Minato couldn't wait to see what Naruto would do next. Minato sat at the table, sipping on a fresh cup of coffee. He was looking down at a piece of paper and he just couldn't help what he saw. He looked up at Kushina. "Have you seen this, Kushina? It's absurd," he said. Kushina looked back. "Oh, are you looking at Naruto's report card again?" Minato nodded and dropped it down on the table. History, A. Math, A. Science, A. Ninjutsu, A+. Genjutsu, A+. It is insane. When I was his age, it was a struggle just to reach B-, and he's acing everything. How is it possible? Kushina let off a little giggle as she finished cleaning up after breakfast. He's gifted. Gifted with that Rinnegan, he said. He thought about it. Naruto was always capable of seeing things. He was observant and claimed that he could even count the flaps of a hummingbird's wings. But beyond that, he was endowed with a photographic memory, it seemed. Whether that was based on his particular dojutsu or just because he truly was a gifted mind. Either way, what this meant was that he was super intelligent. He observed everything in the finest detail and then never forgot it. No, it was more than that. It wasn't just that he was observant. He could have any single technique displayed to him once, and no matter the rank of the jutsu, he could accomplish it. At his age, with his level of chakra, some of these were supposed to be impossible, such as the flying Raijin, which not only was insanely hard to master, but also came with a stamina drain that would kill most children. But Naruto shrugged it off as if it were no biggie. Minato attributed that to his Uzumaki bloodline and their notoriously large chakra reserves. He looked up at the popcorn ceiling of their dining room and attempted to make constellations out of each tiny crumb. Naruto was the ultimate ninja. He had what it took to become the most legendary ninja of them all, and it was of Minato's mind that Naruto would surpass him. No, Naruto would surpass Hiruzen, Tobirama. There was a chance that Naruto would surpass every ninja to ever exist. There was a chance that Naruto would surpass every ninja to ever exist in Konoha, maybe the whole world. And on top of all of this, Naruto had a kind and gentle heart that Minato considered to be his only weakness. No, it's because he has a kind heart that Naruto will be the strongest, Kushina had said in some time long past when told of Minato's views on this. His kind heart will guide him to make proper decisions that will save the lives of as many people as he possibly could. Perhaps Kushina was right. Maybe Naruto would, and if he did, then that was a wonderful thing. Minato couldn't help but be filled with a certain kind of pride, and he hoped to provide for his son every opportunity he needed to become something great. And that seemed like an easier task the more days went along, the more people recognized Naruto for his extraordinary talents. Naruto zoomed down the stairs, skipping the last 3, hitting the ground, cushioning his fall by squatting slightly using his knees to absorb the recoil. "I'm off to the academy," he shouted. "Okay, be safe," Kushina shouted back. Minato smiled and shook his head. Why is our son even still in the academy? I've seen others with far less attention become genin far younger than him and make chunin by his age. Kushina sat down at the table with her own cup of coffee, having finished this moment's chores. You know full well why Naruto's still in the academy. He's afraid of being lonely. He wants to be around people his age. I understand that, but his attachment to the others will have to end eventually. The path of a shinobi can be a lonely one, a path overrun with bodies of comrades and enemies alike. Perhaps so, but all the same, we should let him enjoy his life as it is right now, Kushina said. He will be a wonderful shinobi one day, that's for certain. But until then, let him enjoy his youth. He has all the time in the world to change the world, but his childhood only lasts a few years. Minato heard what Kushina said and nodded in understanding. After all, Minato himself wasn't that different. Let Naruto move at his own pace, huh? Well, I suppose there's no harm in that. We're at peace right now. Naruto ran through the streets, past the open shops, and was greeted by each of the shop owners. One of those selling various forms of produce would toss a crisp and fresh red apple to him. Be certain to give that to Iruka-sensei when you get to school. I'm sure he has his hands full with all of you kids. He deserves a treat. Naruto smiled and waved. Will do. He continued running. As he ran past, he saw a cart move into the road. Naruto simply smiled. Those working by the cart grew nervous and held up their hands.
No, wait! Slow down! You're gonna...
Naruto would run up the side of the wall of a nearby building and jump from the side to avoid everything. He would then keep running. He'd look back and stick at his tongue. Nyeh. As soon as he turned his attention around, he plowed right into Sasuke, the two of them taking a rather painful tumble with each other. The two laid on the ground, groaning. Naruto sat up and checked the inside of his mouth for blood, seeing if he had bitten his tongue during the collision. Sasuke sat up and reached for his head to see if there was any blood there. Of course there wasn't, but there was surely going to be a rather large bruise on his head. Thankfully, it would be hidden by his hair, but it was going to be there. Damn it, Naruto. For someone who supposedly possesses the most exalted eye of them all, you don't pay attention to where you're going. Naruto looked over. Well, you've got a dojutsu too, or are you telling me that the Sharingan couldn't see me coming? I didn't have it activated, jackass, Sasuke shouted. You see rings in my eyes? Neither do I, asshat. The two boys stood ready to take this to the next level until Sakura stepped in. Calm down, both of you. You both should have been paying attention. You're about to become Shinobi. Paying attention is the most important part of our work. Now calm down and let's just get to the academy. Naruto and Sasuke relented. The three of them began to walk toward the academy for their daily lessons. Even if it didn't always seem that way, Naruto and Sasuke were actually best friends. It was always said that you could only really fight with true friends, and that was not lost on Sasuke and Naruto. They had a bitter rivalry going with each other. Sasuke came from a home with high standards, and it always seemed that Sasuke fell short of those expectations, all while his elder brother Itachi exceeded expectations. And as if that weren't insulting enough, Naruto had to be born with the most reputed dojutsu in the world, something that was said that only a bearer of the Sharingan could awaken. Sasuke scoffed and waved it off though. Only special people can get the Rinnegan, Sasuke said, but it's overblown. The Sharingan is better. Sasuke was always attempting to tell Naruto that his Rinnegan didn't mean anything. Naruto always fired back by reminding him that the Rinnegan was the next in line after the Sharingan, but Sasuke scoffed at this, telling him if that were completely true, Naruto would have a Sharingan as well. Sasuke posited that the Sharingan wasn't a lesser form of the Rinnegan, but something that instead came from the Rinnegan. And while the number of techniques that the Rinnegan came with were larger, the Sharingan's abilities were more varied and specialized for the user. In other words, instead of getting the same 6 abilities, the Sharingan substituted them for one shared ability, the Susanoo, and 2 unique abilities. Sasuke was adamant that the Sharingan was somehow the evolved form of the Rinnegan and had potential that surpassed it. The Sharingan didn't need all the bells and whistles of a ringed dojutsu. It was simple and straight to the point, and deadly effective. Sasuke was planning to prove why the Sharingan was superior to the Rinnegan. This bitter rivalry spurred each of them to attempt to surpass the other. However, Sasuke was always behind Naruto no matter what he did. Naruto picked up jutsu quicker than Sasuke could, and when he did pick it up, he could do it immediately, even if it was high-level jutsu. Sasuke cursed Naruto's gifted nature, but Sasuke would only be boldened by this. Naruto would eventually plateau, and when he did, Sasuke would prove that his own potential was far superior. The three came to the academy where they would be seated. However, before Naruto took his seat, he would put the apple given to him out on the desk for Iruka-sensei. As Iruka came in, he saw the apple and picked it up. He took a bite out of it and was pleased to find 0 worms. He looked around. "Roll call," he said through a mouthful of juicy red delicious. As he read off each name, a hand was raised and a voice shouted, "Here." Once that was over with, they began their school day. As Naruto sat there, he didn't pressure himself or listen too hard. After all, everything they were talking about he had either seen or read at some point. It was true that Naruto was far beyond his level and everyone recognized it, but honestly Naruto didn't want to leave his friends or make them feel like he was leagues above them. Naruto knew that Sasuke relied upon their rivalry, and it was that rivalry that kept the two of them going strong. He believed that if it came to light that Naruto was so far ahead of him that he could have easily graduated 4 years ago, that might destroy Sasuke. On the other hand, Sasuke was in class paying attention as hard as humanly possible, absorbing every piece of information like a sponge. He was even taking notes. Sasuke had attained the ability to write along the lines with perfect penmanship, even when not looking at the paper, which was something that truly surprised Naruto. Normally, only Hyuga could do that, but Sasuke's need to surpass Naruto had forced him to push his Sharingan past its own limits and into something that other users of the Sharingan could not truly attain on their own. Naruto wondered if Itachi could do this as well, or if it was possible that Sasuke's own family was underestimating his growth potential. As the day came to a close, however, Iruka was certain to let them know important news. This Friday will be when we hold final exams for graduation. The entire class let out a gasp. Iruka held up his hand to calm them and spoke with a smile. This is the normal graduating age for Shinobi, and the educational examiners have determined that the collective grade of the class is high enough to merit a chance at the Genin exam. So study hard, practice harder, and be here on Friday by 8 a.m. for the test. It won't be easy, it'll take all day, so if you're not here for roll call, you will be removed from the examination. So be sure to set your alarm clocks and get to bed early the night before. And with that, he let the class go. As they went home, Sasuke looked to Naruto. "So, finally we're getting our shot at becoming Genin." Naruto smiled and nodded. "Yes, finally indeed." Sasuke looked over at Naruto with a cocky grin. "My score will be higher than yours." Naruto looked over. "Oh, care to make a wager on that?" Sasuke smiled. "How about loser pays for dinner for the other and Sakura?" Naruto smiled. "I'll take that bet. I'll see you this Friday." Then the three went home. On the day of the exam, they were brought to the school. There, they took an extensive timed test with over 154 questions total, all split between 3 hours over multiple subjects. After that, the class was required to take a physical exam to ensure that they were healthy, along with a few strength tests. After that, they would have to display some ninjutsu. Once this was done, they would wait patiently for their scores to come back. When their tests returned, Naruto saw that he had passed with flying colors, having not missed a single question on the exam, scoring a 100%. He went up and got his headband from the proctors and waited outside. As he waited by the swing set, he watched the other children slowly filing out of the academy building. He waited until he saw Sasuke and Sakura. Once they were out, Naruto stood and began to run in their direction. Once they got there, he smiled nefariously. "Are you ready to show your score?" Sasuke returned the grin. "I hope you're ready to pay out your nose. I want filet mignon." They both displayed their tests to show that they had each gotten 100%. "Wait, what?" Naruto shouted in surprise. "We got the same score. How did you answer all 154 correctly?" Sasuke growled at this. "Well, how did you? There's no way that a simple dojutsu is going to make it possible for you to remember all those answers." Naruto and Sasuke began butting heads a bit. Sakura held up her test to show her score. Naruto and Sasuke almost came unglued. "What the hell?" they both shouted in unison. 100.65? 155 questions correct? To say that they were confused was an understatement. There were only 154 questions. "How did you answer 155? Sasuke demanded to know. "How did you get more than 100? Naruto questioned in frustration. Sakura smiled, because there was a secret question. The entire test in itself was a question. Did you not notice that some questions in every other row were somehow related to previous questions, and that they all had multiple correct answers? Naruto and Sasuke thought about it. "I thought those were a freebie," Naruto said. Sakura continued. "Well, they were all part of a single scenario of which there was actually only one correct answer. You had to answer a certain number of questions in the proper order. I recognized this and answered correctly." Naruto and Sasuke were bummed out that they didn't notice. Sakura giggled. "Ino and Shikamaru both got 100.65% too. You two didn't even score in the top 5. Naruto and Sasuke could feel their egos deflating. Sakura stretched. "Well, I guess that means I won. In that case, I decide where we eat, and you each have to buy me whatever I want." Sasuke and Naruto could not deny that, and so they did. They went out for something to eat and fulfilled their end of the deal. After that, they went home. Naruto made it to his room where he would lay down in bed and prepare to call it for the night. He looked up at the ceiling at the star stickers he had decorated it with. This, along with the gentle light from his dim lamp and the appearance of lights from Konoha's entertainment district, brought him peace. While he was sleeping, the world was going to party well into the night, and that somehow brought him comfort. It meant that all was right in the world. He would think about how he, Sakura, and Sasuke had all passed, and how Irika had told everyone to be sure to come into the academy on Monday morning to be assigned to a team. Naruto was a bit nervous. He didn't know what team he would be put on, with what mentor. He was afraid that he'd feel lonesome, but he decided not to dwell on it and knew that this was a wonderful thing. The start of his shinobi career. He could finally make something of himself. Not that he couldn't before, but now he was feeling as emotionally ready as he was mentally and physically. He was ready to fulfill his destiny and become a shinobi of renown, possibly even Hokage one day. Naruto would drift off to sleep. He would laze about for 2 days, playing around and doing whatever it was he wanted to do. But he did so all with a slight air of unease. And as Monday rolled around, he was up bright and early, earlier than he needed to be, as in he was already up and ready to go to the academy by the time Kushina and Minato woke up. He had breakfast with them and began to make his way to the academy where he would wait for his team to be announced. How joyous it must have been to realize he would not be on a team with anybody else but Sasuke and Sakura. They were named Team 7 and told to wait in another room for their mentor. Naruto and the others did exactly that. Now, if you recall, during this time, Naruto set up a prank to get Kakashi. Sasuke told him it would never work, but it did. But in this world, Naruto does not do that. You know why? He doesn't want to embarrass his father. Minato is the Hokage, and despite how playful Naruto can be, he does keep his dad's reputation in mind when he does things. And right now, being in what he considered to be a professional setting, Naruto refused to play that prank, as it would be unprofessional and would reflect poorly upon his father. And so Naruto remained silent and waited. It was then that Kakashi appeared for the first time. They were surprised by the way he looked. They weren't sure if he was cool and in style or if he was completely edgy and terrifying. If asked, Kakashi would have told them that it was both. After a short meet and greet, the three of them made their way to the forest to begin their test. They were told that they needed to get the bells from Kakashi and to use whatever they needed to get it done. Well, the moment Naruto experienced 1,000 years of death, he took it to heart. Activating his Rinnegan, something that Kakashi had expected, Naruto began to go crazy on him, utilizing the 6 paths abilities that came with his Rinnegan. This really put Kakashi on the ropes. Naruto would throw a kunai at him. Kakashi dodged out of the way and kept his eye on Naruto until suddenly something grabbed the bells from his waist. He looked down to see Naruto there. He had used the flying Raijin jutsu to teleport behind him and take the bells. Kakashi looked back up and saw Naruto standing there. Suddenly, he disappeared in a poof of smoke. Kakashi had been facing a shadow clone this whole time. This disappointed Kakashi. He never really meant for them to get the bells, but instead meant for this to be a test of teamwork. But Kakashi wasn't a liar. He told them that he would accept them as students if they got the bells, and so he would. But here was the catch. He told them that there were only 2 bells and that they would have to decide who got to move on and which of the 3 had to stay behind. He told them that this was what they would face in the field. A choice. Sometimes that one of them might not get to come home, and that they would need to carry on without them. The team attempted to come to a consensus, but none of them could, and all of the members, despite any rivalries, decided that it was best that they all be sent back. And when told to actually decide, they each decided that if the others could not be on Kakashi's team, then none of them would want to be. Because of this, Kakashi was satisfied that his team could grow into a single unit, and was content to make them his students. After this, they began odd jobs here and there, which is awfully boring to the team in general. But Minato, realizing that his son and his friends need a bit more action in their life, decides to give them the Land of Waves mission. During this mission, the team is attacked by the Demon Brothers, and due to Naruto possessing the Rinnegan, his reaction time is quick, and with his incredible power, he utterly destroys the two. They move on further until they meet Zabuza, to which Kakashi feels that he needs to fight instead of his team. However, despite making use of his Sharingan like Sasuke, Kakashi's still caught off guard and trapped in a water prison. Now, this isn't quite as bad as it seemed in the original series, as Naruto and Sasuke had to come up with a sneaky collaboration to push Zabuza back, but in this world, Naruto just has the Diva Path, and so he makes use of it to completely knock Zabuza away. It's not long thereafter that Haku appears to take Zabuza, leaving the group to believe that Zabuza was killed. Kakashi, however, is too weakened by the battle to continue on without rest, so he's brought to Tazuna's house where he's left to sleep. During this time resting, he has his team work on their chakra control by teaching them to stick to surfaces easily. Sakura displays this and manages to do it on her first try. They then look to Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto simply begins to walk up the side of the tree like it's nothing, startling everyone. Naruto finds a branch to hang from and looks at them. "What? I've been doing this for a long time. Chakra control's no new thing to me. I learned that early on, around the time I learned how to do this." Naruto then displayed a perfect Rasengan. He looks around to the shock. He realizes that he displayed a technique that most Chunin don't learn until they're about to become Jonin. He begins to worry that he went too far, but Kakashi recovers quickly. "You know, I was a quick learner too, and made Jonin at around your age. I wonder if you could do it too." Naruto smiles, flustered. He looks down at Sasuke to see horror on his face. Naruto realizes that he had just cliffed Sasuke. Sasuke thought they were on the same level, and now Sasuke has come to realize that Naruto was leagues above him and that there was no way for him to climb in this immediate moment. "Well, it's not that I can do many of those techniques. I just had to train with my father a lot. He's been teaching me his own techniques and stuff. He had to drill it into me," and he realized that nothing he was saying to Sasuke was helping. Want me to teach you? I bet you could do it too, Sasuke. All you have to do is study a little." Sasuke turned around and stormed off into the forest. "Uh-oh," Kakashi said as he watched him go. Naruto gasped. "Oh no, I didn't mean to make him leave." Naruto lost his control and fell from the tree, hitting every branch on the way down. He would sit up and shake his head. He would then look to Kakashi. "Can I go check on him?" Kakashi shook his head. "No, it's best you give him space, Naruto. Let's let him have some time to cope with this." Sasuke walked off into the forest where he would sulk a bit. He sat there thinking about it angrily. Stupid Naruto. He's gifted. Every day he uses that Rinnegan to prove he's better than me. He shouldn't even have a Rinnegan. He's not no Uchiha. That's the dojutsu of my bloodline. He doesn't even have a Sharingan to go with it. Sasuke looked at his hand. He attempted to make a Rasengan by taking his chakra and turning it into a sphere, but it was not doing anything besides becoming a wispy wind which passed through his fingers, ever elusive like his rightful place as top dog on the team. Sasuke thought about how he was simply never good enough. In this team, he was always behind Naruto, who was a gifted shinobi who could do anything. Then at home, he was always behind Itachi, who was considered a wonder boy. Every time he looked into his father's eyes, he saw disappointment. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" he'd been told. Itachi did wonderful feats, and even at a young age, Sasuke attempted to emulate them. Sasuke even managed to learn fire-style ninjutsu by the age of 6, which should have been impossible. But even then, Fugaku ignored it. After all, Itachi learned it at 4. Itachi was the top of his class and graduated early. Sasuke was not only behind Naruto, but also behind Sakura and Ino and Shikamaru. And he didn't graduate early, no, he graduated the same time as everyone else. Sasuke knew that he was better than this. He knew he could be stronger than this. He needed to be. Sasuke would begin attempting to run up the tree, controlling his chakra. All the same, he had issues. He couldn't get it and was getting more and more frustrated until he began kicking the tree over and over, splintering it. "You're never going to get it that way," someone said in a soft voice behind him. Sasuke turned around. "And who are you supposed to be? And more importantly, what's a girl doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" The person smiled. "I'm actually a boy. My name's Haku. The same thing could be asked of you though. What are you doing out here, kicking down trees?" Sasuke looked back at the tree that had been kicked so hard that it bore the brand name of his sandals stamped into the wood in a mirrored fashion. "I'm trying to climb this tree with only the chakra on the soles of my feet, but I can't do it. I keep accidentally falling off." Haku nodded. "I can tell you exactly why as well." Sasuke looked back. "Oh, what is it then?" Haku continued. "You're consumed in too much emotion. Just as your heart rate increases as you grow angrier, it becomes harder and harder to control. The same can be said of chakra. It may give you a momentary boost of strength, but it robs you of control, making it next to useless unless properly harnessed. What you need to do is be calm. Tell me, what's bothering you?" Sasuke looked to Haku from the corner of his eye with a scowl. "And why should I tell you?" "So I can maybe help," Haku said. Sasuke scoffed. "No, I don't feel like giving away any personal information to a stranger." Haku shrugged. "All right, I'll be on my way then." He turned and began to leave. Sasuke attempted to not care, but seeing someone who possibly held the answer to his dilemma walk away made him nervous. He needed to know. "Okay, fine, you win, I'll tell you." Haku turned back and walked over. "What's the matter?" Sasuke began explaining everything. His insecurity, his need to be better, and why he fought so hard for it. Haku nodded. "You carry a large burden on your shoulders. Oftentimes, the person hardest on us, the one who expects the most from us, is ourselves. We seek validation and attention from those we love, and so we push ourselves past our limits to deliver, even if it hurts our growth." "What do I do?" Sasuke asked. Haku thought about it. "While a rivalry with your brother and your friend is a good way to grow, you should realize that you don't need to be the best, and you don't need to meet your father's absurd conditions. You're above average for a shinobi of your age, and that should be enough. Be proud of your strength. So few have your potential. Grow at your own pace and let go of the need to be better than everyone. Use your desire to surpass them to grow, but don't let it hobble your potential. Simply smile and conquer yourself. That's the only enemy you need to conquer to be happy. Now, try again." Sasuke took a deep breath and calmed down. He began attempting to go up the tree again. He failed quite a few times, but Haku told him it was okay and to simply try again. And so Sasuke did until he reached the top of the tree. He looked down. "Haku, did you see?" But Haku was gone, as if he were never there to begin with. Sasuke smiled. "Thank you." Not long after, Sasuke found himself standing on the bridge, guarding it. As he looked out over the body of water that they were attempting to bridge, he reflected on his drive to be better than Naruto. Everything would come in its own time, and he wouldn't let his fear slow him down or ruin his joy and potential. But as he waited, slowly, he sensed another presence. It was Zabuza and a masked boy. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke all came together to defend Tizuna as Kakashi made his way towards Zabuza. "Leave, Zabuza. There's no need for you to do this." Zabuza shook his head. "Oh, but there is. This bridge threatens Gato's profits, and what threatens Gato's profits threatens mine." Kakashi and Zabuza began to battle, all while Naruto and Sasuke face off against the masked boy. Sakura stayed back to defend Tizuna. The masked boy utilizes his demonic mirroring ice crystals technique. This traps Naruto and Sasuke in a dome of mirrors from which the boy passes into and between, throwing senbon at them. Naruto and Sasuke, despite their ability to see it coming, can't react fast enough. The masked boy's speed is just something else entirely. Naruto would take out a kunai with a mark on it and throw it toward a gap in the mirror, but as the kunai flew, a senbon knocked it out of the air. Was it possible that the masked boy knew what it was, based on the sealing formula on the handle? Naruto looked to Sasuke. "Get under me!" Sasuke was confused, but did as Naruto commanded, crawling between Naruto's feet. Naruto looked up and released a yell as he activated the Diva Path, shattering the mirrors and sending the masked boy flying. Sasuke stood up. The masked boy then rose to his feet. Naruto would then take a few steps forward and rush with a kunai at the ready. Haku would rush towards Naruto and duck under the shot before coming up and burying a senbon right under his chin. Suddenly, that Naruto disappeared as the real Naruto came in with a Rasengan and struck the boy in the face. The boy went rolling back. He hit the ground as his mask cracked and fell from his face. Sasuke stood there in shock for a moment. "Haku?" Naruto looked back. "You know this boy?" Sasuke nodded. He coached me in the forest. Haku stood. Sasuke then spoke again. Haku, why are you doing this? Haku stood there for a moment. Remember when I told you that we seek validation and attention from those we love, and push ourselves beyond our limits to please them? Haku looked back at Zabuza. Just as your father is to you, Sasuke, Zabuza is to me. I love him like a father, and every action is to bring him happiness. He looked back at Sasuke for a short moment. Allow me to show you my resolve. Suddenly, Haku dashed and stepped between Kakashi's Chidori and Zabuza, taking the shot himself, impaling himself on Kakashi's arm. Sasuke cried out for him. In a moment, Zabuza raised his blade to strike Kakashi down, Haku's body alongside it. No! Sasuke cried as Zabuza was eaten up with black flames. Zabuza panicked and looked to Sasuke to see his eyes bleeding, his pupils the shape of a flower. Zabuza hit the ground and rolled, but nothing put out the flames. He then ran to the edge of the bridge and jumped into the water, hoping that the cool waves would smother it, but no. This flame was fueled not only by Sasuke's chakra, but by Zabuza's as well. It would not stop burning until nothing was left of it. Sasuke stepped forward. Naruto looked at Sasuke, tears of blood dripping from his face. He walked to Kakashi and knelt down by Haku. Haku was already gone by this time, and in that moment everything made sense to him. Love and hate, pain and joy, all of them were the same. They perpetuated each other. A person could not know one without the existence of the other. This contrast gave clarity to life as a whole, and it was only through this revelation and this deeper look into what connected everyone beyond the physical that gave light to the eyes of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi-sensei, he asked, is this what it means to be a shinobi? Kakashi nodded. He hugged Sasuke as Sasuke began to cry. He didn't know that he could show so much emotion for someone he'd barely met, someone he had only had a short conversation with. But the fact was, in that short conversation, Haku had shown him that it was okay not to measure himself by anyone else's yardstick, and had taught him that what he wanted to be was okay. And in the end, the very trap that Haku had helped Sasuke get out of was what claimed Haku's life. Was it a cry for help? Or an attempt to steer an innocent soul away from a path that would lead to damnation, the same kind Haku now faced? These things were what lit a fire in Sasuke's heart. As he looked down at Haku, he saw not the boy in the kimono he had met before, he saw himself. A version of himself he could have been. A version of himself that couldn't be saved. And perhaps that's what penetrated his emotional outburst. Regardless, in the midst of this, Gato and his henchmen arrived to the bridge to witness the failure of their mercenaries. Well, at least I don't have to pay for their services, he said as he looked into the water as the black flames rested upon the surface. Sasuke looked up at Gato and his henchmen as they grew closer. A victory to be sure, no matter how small, he said as he drew closer. This pain and suffering, death and blood, all of this done and you still haven't changed the outcome. You've not even slowed down the inevitable. All you've done is bring yourself pain, and soon you'll die. You all will, just as Haku and Zabuza have. And just the same as them, your death will equal the same as your life. Absolutely nothing. Sasuke's fists clenched. You should leave. Gato and his men laughed. Leave? Oh dear, the tiny child will smite us. He's angry, run for your lives. He chuckled a bit more as he brought his left hand back to the cane in his right. Kill him. Kill the master as well, and the orange one. And what of the girl? One of them asked. Gato thought about it. She's very beautiful. She'd be ashamed to waste. Collect her, and we'll sell her later. Sasuke stood, his teeth clenched as his fists were. The clouds above began to churn as the wind began to pick up. Lightning struck the water nearby. You are so evil, Sasuke said. So vile. You're not even human. You're an animal. Gato laughed. Humans are weak. I've transcended their petty moral ideals. I have attained true freedom. Freedom from right and wrong. I've become as nature intended. Nature? Nature intended? I'll show you what nature intends. Sasuke, Kakashi called out. Suddenly, Sasuke stepped forward. His eyes glowed and burned red as blood dripped from them. He cried out, and as he did, a purple energy enveloped him and formed into a large chakra avatar. This creature pulled from its side a large sword, and with it he began to strike down Gato's men. Even Gato was terrified, having never expected such a technique to even be possible. Naruto watched on, all the carnage. Is this the true power of the Sharingan? The Susanoo lifted Gato into the air, the old man frail and weak. In wrath, and perhaps just to see him squirm, it began to squeeze and crush him. Gato, in his last moments, looked into Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke looked into Gato's eyes with not a single shred of empathy. He said not a thing, but in his heart he considered Gato to be an animal, a rabid one. And the only way to stop a rabid animal was to put it down, and so Sasuke would. His Susanoo squeezed until an audible crunch could be heard. He dropped the shattered shape of a creature that once resembled a human into the water where Zabuza's ashes now floated, as of yet still burning. And with that over, Sasuke returned to the ground. Such a brutal act. Nobody could say a word. Nobody dared approach Sasuke. In this one moment, the Shinobi world's darkness crept into Sasuke's life, and Sasuke witnessed it. The yin to the yang of his peaceful village life. If his life in Konoha was filled with happiness, peace, and stress at not being good enough, then his life outside of it was filled with conflict, sorrow, and an absence of caring of what he'd become. Without a word, the quartet of ninjas returned to their village. The people of the Land of Waves would not forget this action, the day that a vengeful deity took the shape of a child and judged the unjust. The bridge would become known from that day forward as the Bridge of the Storm God. Once home, Kakashi would go to debriefing, and when at home, Naruto would inform his father, Minato, of what had happened. Minato listened to this and felt bad for Sasuke, but felt that this was exactly what Team 7 needed. Having fought in the Shinobi World Wars, Minato knew what kind of world they lived in. And as much as we wished for it to be upbeat and happy, the Shinobi world was one of strife, struggle, and blood. And Team 7 had learned that today. It began to make Minato wonder if Team 7 were perhaps ready to partake in the upcoming Chunin exams. Surely they had earned their stripes, and now was the time to let them have it. Elsewhere, Sasuke returned home, and for the first time ever, his story was demanded to be known over dinner instead of Itachi's. His father was obviously proud of him, but despite this, Sasuke was not satisfied. This world was an unjust one, where people valued murder and bloodshed. Every human, every shinobi was another Gato, was an animal disguised as a person. The world was full of corruption. Sasuke would stand in front of the mirror and look into his own eyes. These new eyes, these Sharingan. They were symbolic of one who could see the way the world was and what it needed to do. Sasuke looked down at his hands and realized there was blood on them. How symbolic. Perhaps from his eyes, but it symbolized the blood spilled. Gato's blood, Haku's blood. This world was one where blood was spent like currency, and where prices could be placed upon the human life. It was unfair. Sasuke needed to see it end. And to that end, he decided he would be the next Hokage. Naruto was not the only one to possess eyes that saw the truth of all things. Sasuke's eyes also saw truth, and that truth would guide him. A world without war, without suffering. He hoped one day to find that, and he would not stop until he did. Sasuke stood over his sink looking into the mirror. It had been about a week since their return to the village, and they were still taking it easy. Their jobs had returned to the painfully simple, but what was noticed was that people were filing into the village from all over. Kakashi had told them that this was the Chunin exams, and Team 7, due to their bravery, were allowed by the 4th Hokage to partake in these exams. Sasuke had only this afternoon signed up for them with Naruto, but all the while Sasuke looked into the mirror at his Mangekyo Sharingan with curiosity. Was this the power of the Sharingan? The power he believed could overtake the Rinnegan? How had it formed? Why did this variant exist like this? It almost seemed like a pure biological response. So what was this? Was this the need arising and forcing an awakening, or was it more? Even during war, when those who possessed the Sharingan were in danger, they couldn't just reawaken the Mangekyo. So what had forced this awakening? Sasuke had grown interested in this new dojutsu he had only heard rumors about. It was considered the crown jewel of the Uchiha. While not exactly mythical by any means, it was indeed legendary, and had become the symbol for true Uchiha power. As Sasuke looked at them, he heard his mother call him for dinner. Sasuke called down to her that he was coming before washing his hands as he had meant to do before. Making his way downstairs, his mother would put a plate on the table. Fugaku, at the head of the table, was ready, and Itachi was only now just getting home. Makoto would sit down at the table with their plate as Itachi finished washing his hands. He came to sit. They gave thanks for their meal and began to eat. As they did, however, an unusual silence hung over the table, and Sasuke began to notice. As if Fugaku sensed Sasuke's awareness, Fugaku decided to cut to the chase. I noticed a few of my books were missing today. Sasuke sat silently. Which ones? The ones on the Sharingan, the anatomy and the awakenings of it, Fugaku said. Oh, yeah, I took those, father. I hope that's all right. Fugaku chuckled a little. Son, if you wanted to, I'd give you those books. I'm perfectly alright with you borrowing them, but the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to know if there's a reason for it. You see, Fugaku was well informed, and very little happened within the Uchiha that he didn't know about. He read every report from every mission an Uchiha was on, and upon reading the debriefing on Sasuke's mission, he had come to realize the truth. He wanted to hear it from Sasuke though. Sasuke began to speak. I've been trying to understand the Sharingan and the Mangekyo variant. On the last mission, I understood everything and saw the Shinobi world for what it was for the very first time. It opened my eyes. I awakened my Mangekyo Sharingan. An unusual pause came over the dinner table. Sasuke looked around. Fugaku smiled. I knew this day would come, he said. It's always a painful change, but the awakening of your Mangekyo is proof of your development in both heart and body. And now your desire to read my books is development of mind. You're getting stronger. You make me prouder and prouder every day, Sasuke. Even if he never said it, Sasuke really needed to hear that right now. For so long, he had felt inadequate, and now he was beginning to feel as if he were finally becoming the son that Fugaku wanted. It was everything he could do to choke away tears. Fugaku put his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. After dinner, I'd like to show you something. Fugaku had brought Sasuke and Itachi together out to the forest. They walked by the river until a small shrine came into view. Entering it, they found a stone tablet. Sasuke found that with his Sharingan and his Mangekyo, he could read more of it than he could with the naked eye. It spoke of the Sage of Six Paths and the Rinnegan. What is this stone tablet, father? Sasuke asked. It's our inheritance from our ancestor, the Sage of Six Paths. He designed it so that it could not be read by anyone but the Uchiha. It's viewable only by those who have his dojutsu, and that would be us. He put his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. I brought you here for a reason, with your brother. Fugaku turned to Itachi and nodded. They both looked down at Sasuke. Sasuke was startled to see that both Fugaku and Itachi had Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku knelt down to Sasuke's level. With these eyes, you will only grow stronger and stronger, Sasuke. I have so many questions, father, Sasuke said. How does the Sharingan actually work? What makes the Mangekyo? Fugaku laughed and began to explain. The Sharingan was awakened by determination, as many powerful jutsu are. But it's only through pain that we awaken the Mangekyo. Emotions have a powerful connection with our chakra and can change its composition. During times of great sorrow, when love becomes hate, our chakra changes. And when it changes, it alters its physical state, which causes the Mangekyo to awaken its true form. The Sharingan evolves based upon the chakra that flows into it. Just because hate flows through the eye does not mean we have to succumb to it. Our pain is our greatest weapon, one we wield out of sight until the time that it's required. With this power, if you learn to control it, you will become one of the strongest shinobi of all. All the while, Naruto was sleeping cozy in bed. He had craved so much to get out of the village for a mission, and that itch was adequately scratched. But now he gave zero craps about leaving the village and was content to stay here for a while. Being thrust into a life or death situation had caused him to become far more appreciative of the personal peace he'd discovered here. Kushina would watch him sleep before going downstairs and resting on the couch with Minato. Naruto's received more high marks. His mentor praised his actions during his time out of the village. He thinks it would be a shame to allow him to remain as a genin. He says he's halfway to Jonin by now. Minato shook his head with a smile. What are we gonna do about that boy? I'm gonna have to start training again or he'll be coming for my job. I read the report as well. Did you notice that Sasuke got high marks too? Minato nodded. Both of them did, which is why Team 7 is officially signed up for the Chunin exams tomorrow. I'm interested to see what Naruto can do. The sun was up bright and early, just as Team 7 was. They stood there alone outside the building where the Chunin exams would take place. Naruto and Sasuke were both very excited, their rivalry shining bright. You better watch out, Naruto. The Sharingan has once again evolved. Its potential's expanding. Soon your Rinnegan won't be able to catch up. Naruto laughed at that. We'll see, Sasuke. Entering in, they were brought to a room where they could take another test. This time, Naruto and Sasuke were paying close attention to see if there was a hidden answer anywhere, but there wasn't so far. They were given a lot of time, but looking at the paper, they found only painfully few questions. There was only one sheet, and it was only one-sided. But as the time began, Naruto realized that each question was insanely hard. There was no way that he could solve these. Many Jonin couldn't even solve these. Naruto was hard-pressed to say that even his father could solve these. There had to be a trick to it. These questions were absurd. Then it became apparent to Naruto and Sasuke that the goal was to cheat, and the two began to utilize their dojutsu to do so. This, they assumed, was the thing that they were supposed to do, as getting caught cheating only docked points. It didn't get you disqualified outright. Naruto and Sasuke would finish their questions quickly, but they realized at the bottom of the test there was a place to add another long answer, but there was no question. They wondered what this meant. As time came to a close, the proctor demanded that all pencils be put down. When they were told that a final question would be asked, and only those who could actually solve it would be allowed to continue. Those who quit would be out of the exams, and those who failed to answer correctly would be delegated to the Genin rank for the rest of their lives. Naruto and Sasuke were both startled by this, but their confidence was good enough that they were sure that they could handle anything that came their way. And so they decided to take the question, which by default proved to be the right answer. With this, Team 7 got to move on to round 2, which was a deadly game of capture the flag in the Forest of Death, so named for the number the training ground had, number 44. While many didn't realize this, the word 4 in Japanese was shi, the same word that they had for death. And given that this name had twice the number of 4s in it, it likely meant that there was twice as much danger here than anywhere else. And whether it was prophetic due to the actions of those taking care of it, or whether it was just luck, the forest was dangerous. One of the most dangerous places in the village. In fact, the test they were about to take was so dangerous that each shinobi continuing the test was forced to sign a waiver that absolved Konoha of any liability caused by death or bodily harm that occurred due to the forest itself, or the other examinees. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were ready to go in. Due to their dojutsu, Naruto and Sasuke were planned to be some of the heaviest hitters, and were expected to be the ones to come in first. As soon as the gates were opened and the test began, each member of Team 7 was allowed in. From there, Naruto and Sasuke turned on their dojutsu, hoping to find their targets soon. They had the Heaven Scroll, which was one of 2 types of scroll. They needed the other scroll to pass the test, so they were searching for the Scroll of Earth. As they did so, they were rushing, keeping their eyes open for targets. However, they weren't being as attentive as they should have been, and the fact that the Sharingan wasn't a Byakugan became apparent when a giant centipede came out of nowhere and knocked them to the ground. They all sat there in a daze. Sakura rolled over. She was still conscious, but Naruto was hardly conscious at all. I mean, if he wasn't responding to his name when Sasuke called it out. This meant that Sasuke was the one needing to defend them. It was then that Sasuke summoned his Susanoo, bearing a weapon, its purple chakra covering them. At this point, it was hardly more than a partial skeleton covering them all, but it possessed a sword at least. As the centipede came around, it clashed with his Susanoo. Sasuke grunted as blood dripped from his eyes. It felt like every cell was on fire when he was using this technique. He knew he couldn't keep it up for long, so he coated the Susanoo's blade with Amaterasu to ensure that all he had to do was strike the beast once to deal a fatal blow. He readied his blade as the creature came in. As it reached him, he struck out at it and severed it in 2, with the flames jumping from his sword to the creature's body, causing it to burn. As the beast died, Sasuke let his Susanoo go and fell to his knees. By this time, Naruto was awake again. Sakura ran to Sasuke and knelt down next to him. "Sasuke, are you okay?" He looked to her with a bit of a tired look in his eye. He nodded. "I'm fine." She would then take a handkerchief and wipe the blood from his cheeks. They would move to a location to allow Sasuke to rest. It was obvious that he was tired from using his Susanoo, and so they gave him something to eat, one of the packed lunches they brought with them, and gave him plenty of water. After about 45 minutes, he was back on his feet again. Together, they continued their search. No more than 15 minutes later did they find an unsuspecting group with an Earth Scroll. Naruto and Sasuke would use their dojutsu to cast genjutsu over the members. They would replace their Earth Scroll with a rolled up banana leaf and convince them that it was their scroll. They would then leave without so much as anyone knowing that they were there. No more than 20 minutes after that, they were back at the center of the forest. Entering the facility, they would be met by Kakashi, who would congratulate them. 1 hour, 19 minutes, 26 seconds. That's a new record if I'm not mistaken. Sasuke nodded. "It is. My brother set the last one. Sadly, we could have done even better than this if we didn't hit a snag with a centipede." Kakashi clicked his tongue in disappointment. "But even though that happened, it's still impressive. After all, you broke the record by a country mile. So take the dub and get some rest." And they did just that. It wasn't long after that that the round 3 exhibition matches would begin. In this match, Sasuke was pitted against Rock Lee. Sasuke couldn't keep up physically with Rock Lee, but he did have his partial Susanoo to cover him and protect him. But even then, it seemed like the Susanoo was beginning to crack a little as Lee continued to strike him. Sasuke attempted to use Amaterasu to bring Lee down, planning to extinguish the flames before they caused too much damage with Kagutsuchi. But Lee was fast. Sasuke was required to continue using Susanoo to defend himself and attack. Eventually, he got lucky and managed to grab Lee before smashing him into the ground. This resulted in Sasuke's victory. Naruto was forced to face off against Gaara in his match, and with the power of the Rinnegan, there was hardly anything Gaara could do. Even his absolute defense was no match for the Rinnegan's power. Gaara would soon go down as well, resulting in Naruto's victory. After the first match, the Chunin exams were paused, and the attendees were allowed to have a month off for training, most of which Naruto spent with his father. Sasuke, on the other hand, returned home. As he did, he would sit on the front porch, rubbing his eyes. He would grab a pair of glasses to help him read. Itachi would come out of the house and see this. "Oh, is something wrong, Sasuke?" Sasuke looked up at him. "I love the Mangekyo Sharingan. It finally seems to display the potential to beat the Rinnegan, but it's so fleeting. It takes up so much stamina to use, and now I can already tell that it's starting to hurt my vision. I'm getting nervous that my body's gonna give out before I even get to Naruto's level." Itachi nodded and sat down. "You know, Sasuke, there is a way to alleviate these issues." Sasuke looked over. "What?" Itachi looked at him. "Remember when father said that the Sharingan reacts to chakra? Well, there is another evolution that we know of after this. It's called the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It can only be achieved when two Mangekyo Sharingan users of close blood relation trade Sharingan. In doing so, the Mangekyo Sharingan will once again mutate and give you access to your abilities with less stamina drain, and you won't go blind from using them." Sasuke was amazed. "Wow, that's wonderful. I'd love to have that," he said, as if the most beautiful piece of candy were dangled in front of his face. His smile faded as he slowly pulled back. "I mean, only if you were willing to." Itachi smiled. "To be honest, I've wanted one since the day I awakened my Mangekyo, knowing what would happen if I overused it. If you want, we could try. I'm sure that father would approve." Sasuke smiled. "Let's do it then." Now, I'll pause for just a moment and explain something. In the past, I've heard people say that merely swapping eyes doesn't work, and one can only get the Eternal Mangekyo because of absorption or something like that. Well, I'm here to say that that's actually unconfirmed. The only thing to my knowledge that supports this theory is a panel or two that shows a figure with 4 Sharingan instead of 2, and I believe Itachi had that same panel but had 2 empty slots where an additional set of Sharingan could go. Now, these 2 panels are up for interpretation as we're never specifically told that they absorb the Sharingan. All we know is that the recipient removes the Mangekyo and transplants it. So to say that only one can achieve the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan this way, unless I'm mistaken, is technically headcanon, which isn't a bad thing, because literally everything in this what if is fun headcanon. And so I'm just saying this so y'all understand the logic behind my choice. I don't claim to be an expert like many others, but this is just my own personal opinion. And I also very much am telling a fun story, so don't expect everything to be perfectly accurate. Love you. Alright, back to the story. After the month has passed by, the group was allowed to return to the Chunin exams where they were all ready. Naruto and Sasuke continued to face off against opponents until they both were declared to be the 2 greatest shinobi in the exams. And this would ultimately lead to the confrontation of a lifetime. They ended up in the finals together, where the 2 were planning to go as far as possible against each other. Naruto stood there directly opposite Sasuke and smiled, his Rinnegan glowing. "This match has been a long time coming, Sasuke. Are you ready?" Sasuke smiled as he displayed his Mangekyo. "I've been ready for a while." Naruto looked at him curiously for a moment. "I can't put my finger on it, but something's changed." The 2 patterns in Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan began to spin. The Mangekyo was incomplete. Only with Itachi's help did I manage to complete the Mangekyo Sharingan and master it. I plan to show you exactly how strong the Sharingan is, and I'll show you exactly why it's superior to the Rinnegan. Naruto scoffed. "The Rinnegan is the most reputed of all dojutsu. Your dojutsu came from mine. It's watered down. You think it really stands a chance?" Sasuke nodded. "I do. The Sharingan is also stated to be one of the 3 most reputed dojutsu. Our 2 dojutsu are of the same family, yet our 2 dojutsu separately are each counted as one of 3 venerated eyes. Just because mine is descended from yours, don't assume it can't keep up." Naruto let out a bit of a laugh. "I love it. That's the spirit. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress you've made, Sasuke. I'm beginning to believe what you say holds water. Show me the potential of your new variant." Sasuke nodded. "I will. Prepare yourself and behold the power of the kaleidoscope copy wheel eye that will never lose its light, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan." In the Hokage's box, Minato Namikaze sat. By his side, he had invited Fugaku Uchiha to view the battle with him. "Your son's abilities have far exceeded my expectations, Fugaku," Minato said. "I'm impressed." Fugaku looked to his village's leader. "He has only been pushed to come this far because of your son's rivalry with him. Your son is strong, and the rumors that he is the Sage of 6 Paths Reborn. It's truly an honor for me to have my child on the same team as yours, Lord Fourth." Minato laughed. "We're alone right now, Fugaku. We're friends. Feel free to drop the honorifics. Let's enjoy this match as 2 fathers would." Fugaku laughed a bit. "All right, Minato." The head of the Uchiha clan looked down upon the match and a grin drew upon his cheeks. He then looked back. "Hey, Minato. How about a friendly bet?" Minato's eyes lit up for a moment. "Oh, a bet. What is it?" Fugaku looked down on the battle. I bet that my son Sasuke can beat your son. An interesting bet, Fugaku, but no bet is complete without the ante. What do I get when Naruto wins? Fugaku sat there for a moment. When Sasuke wins, you will treat me and my family to a wonderful dinner at your home. And should Naruto beat Sasuke somehow, how about you come to my family's home? We'll cook up the best we can. Minato stood from his seat and walked to the window to look out as well. He offered his hand to Fugaku. I accept the terms of the bet. Fugaku shook Minato's hand. The two then began to watch from the window intently. Naruto looked back at the box. Looks like our dads are interested. Sasuke looked up and around. Looks like everyone's interested. Naruto nodded. Let's not keep them waiting, shall we? Naruto lowered into a fighting stance. Let's not. Sasuke also lowered down. Suddenly they rushed at each other. The two of them were starting off simple, nothing but taijutsu, a test to see who was better with their techniques. Both boys had picked up many just by watching others, but Sasuke's strikes, while not as powerful as Naruto's due to having less chakra in reserve, were more precise. After his battle with Rock Lee, Sasuke had been training to do something. Despite how much he was working on this, he still couldn't do anything like Lee, but all the same, he managed to open up the first gate. Gate of opening! Rock Lee from the stands stood up when he saw it. He did it! He learned the first gate! Might Guy smiled and nodded in approval. Lee called out to Sasuke from the stands. Go get him, Sasuke! With this extra boost in power, Sasuke was ready to go on the offensive again. He had to be careful though. He had needed to push Naruto into a corner. Sasuke rushed forward. Naruto summoned shadow clones to attack Sasuke from all angles, but Sasuke, however, turned and began striking out, kicking and punching before any of the clones got close. He could admit when Sasuke had overtaken him in something, and he was impressed that Sasuke, as of right now, surpassed him in taijutsu. It was time to switch to ninjutsu. Naruto would take out a group of kunai and throw it at Sasuke, which Sasuke would barely dodge. Naruto would then begin to form a Rasengan. Sasuke saw this and would attempt a great fireball jutsu to stop Naruto's attack. As Naruto rushed towards the flames, Sasuke would pour chakra into his flames. Naruto would suddenly use the flying Raijin jutsu to teleport to one of the kunai that landed behind Sasuke. He then rushed to Sasuke with his Rasengan. Sasuke only barely managed to detect it. He put up a Susanoo ribcage to protect him, as it was all he could do at the time. Naruto smashed his Rasengan into the ribcage, which then exploded. The ribcage withstood the shot, but Sasuke was still knocked back because of the way the Rasengan worked. He hit the ground and began to sit up. Now he had to admit that Naruto knew more ninjutsu than he, and he had a deeper well of chakra than him as well. As for genjutsu, they were both in a dead tie. So what was left? Dojutsu. How about we just get to the main event already, Naruto? Naruto smiled. I thought you would never ask. Naruto would attempt to use the Diva Path to strike Sasuke, but Sasuke put up his Susanoo to catch the brunt of the attack. At this point, he had already evolved it to its armored state. Sasuke would rush forward with the Susanoo on top of him the whole time. Naruto began to move back. Using the Diva Path, he rose into the air and would use the Ashura Path to fire down missiles at Sasuke. Sasuke would use the Amaterasu to cause the missiles to self-destruct before they could even get there. Naruto would fly to the other end of the arena and would summon various beasts with his animal path. There was a Cerberus and a centipede. The two rushed at Sasuke, but Sasuke had experience with a centipede. He would coat his Susanoo's blade in Amaterasu and would proceed to slice the centipede to ribbons. The Cerberus was next. It attacked Sasuke, but its teeth could not get through the thick armor. Sasuke effortlessly pushed the blade of his Susanoo into the throat of one of the heads of the Cerberus. The other head roared as the first went limp. Sasuke would then finish it off with Amaterasu. Naruto saw this and began to wonder if this Susanoo truly was indestructible, even to the Rinnegan. He would begin to take census of his abilities and the powers that the Rinnegan afforded him. He came to the conclusion that he might be able to beat it if he got close. And so he summoned his multi-shadow clones and more of his animal summons. They rushed the Susanoo. The animals weren't really to do damage, but to serve as a distraction as Naruto and his clones drew closer. Just as predicted, it worked. Naruto began to use the Preta Path to absorb the chakra of the Susanoo. Sasuke could feel himself and his Susanoo being weakened. He attempted to turn his attention towards the shadow clones of Naruto, but as he destroyed each one, it would be replaced by two more. They would continue on unless Sasuke could find and knock back the real Naruto. But sadly, he couldn't manage to find him. He wondered if the real Naruto were even anywhere near his Susanoo's range, and suddenly the Susanoo dissipated. Naruto's shadow clones rushed forward, grabbing one and spinning it around by the arm to give it momentum. The clone was thrown and put a Rasengan right into Sasuke's chest, knocking him back against the wall. Sasuke hit the ground unconscious, and Naruto was declared the winner. But to be honest, Naruto was surprised with how much fight Sasuke had put up. It seemed that the Rinnegan was still superior to the Sharingan though. Minato let out a sigh of relief. That was close. I was afraid that Naruto would lose for a moment there. That Susanoo truly is something else. Fugaku sat there for a moment. Get a medical team out there to check on Sasuke. Sasuke would be carted off the field. Naruto watched this and felt bad. His victory was tainted by the bitterness of having hurt his best friend, but all in all, the whole team, due to their strength they displayed, were upgraded to Chunin. And just as promised, that night, Fugaku's family had Naruto's over as a treat. Minato would knock on the door and Fugaku would open it. Welcome. Come in, Lord Fourth. Minato would step in, followed by Kushina and Naruto. He would close the door behind and sit down at the table where they would often eat. Makoto would come up with a fresh pot of tea and would ask them if they wanted any. Minato and Kushina took them up on some, though Naruto didn't. He wasn't the biggest fan of tea anyway. That was a wonderful match earlier, Fugaku said. Minato nodded. It had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Fugaku then looked to Naruto. You must be very proud. You did very well today. Naruto offered a slight bow of thanks. I am. Thank you. Sasuke should be proud too. The battle truly impressed me, and I feel like I'm going to have to double down on my training just to keep an advantage. Fugaku smiled. It was at about that time that Sasuke came down the steps. He wasn't really dressed up as neatly as the rest, but that was okay. After all, he was supposed to be resting right now due to the fight's conclusion being a bit more brutal than he expected. Fugaku looked back. Ah, Sasuke, you decided to come down after all. You know I said it would be okay for you to stay up and rest, right? Sasuke nodded. Yes, but I didn't feel like sleeping, and the smell of the food made me hungry. Fugaku motioned Sasuke down and to a pillow right beside him. He would then pull Sasuke into an embrace. And for the first time in a while, Sasuke felt as if he could call himself his father's pride and joy. And for that reason alone, he came down the stairs. Naruto looked to Sasuke, whose head was still bandaged up, his left arm and right leg bandaged a little. Are you okay? Naruto asked with genuine concern. Sasuke nodded. Yeah, just a little bruised here and there, a slight concussion. Naruto looked down. I'm sorry, Sasuke. I didn't mean to hurt you this much. I just felt like I needed to go all out to actually beat you. Sasuke chuckled a bit. It's fine, Naruto. Honestly, it's the same I would have done to you. And it's a great honor to me that you had to go as far as you did just to beat me. It brings me pride. Your son is very gracious, Minato said to Fugaku. And yours is very humble, Lord Fourth. It gives me hope for the upcoming generation. They will surpass their parents in strength of body, mind, and heart. It was then that Itachi walked in, still wearing his Anbu armor. Ah, Itachi, welcome back. Itachi waved. I'm going to be off for a quick shower. I'll be back as soon as I can. Itachi went up the steps by increments of 2, and so the group sat there and enjoyed dinner, talking about old times and new alike, talking about the state of the world, and even going so far as to spark a rivalry over their children. It was then that a slightly snockered Fugaku asked the question that nobody expected. So, when's the next kid coming, Minato? Minato and Kushina both looked to each other with a blush. We haven't decided if we want one yet. Fugaku laughed. Well, you better hurry. There's only a short window for it, you know. Makoto elbowed Fugaku in the ribs. Ow, hey! Makoto looked over at the Hokage and his wife. Please forgive him. He's a bit of a happy drunk. He says whatever's on his mind without filter. Kushina smiled and looked at Minato. My Minato's the same way. Minato blushed a bit. He then grabbed another sake glass. He raised it. To our inability to maintain common sense when hammered. Fugaku raised his glass. What he said. Itachi was already sitting up against the wall by the stairs, having seemingly fallen asleep. Naruto and Sasuke were outside on the porch, just sitting in front of a fire pit. Sasuke looked up toward the stars. I almost had you know. Naruto shrugged. I've got to admit, you had me nervous for a second there. That's Susanoo. I'm gonna have to study more Six Paths techniques. There's got to be a counter to it. Sasuke scoffed with a smile. You know something, Naruto? I achieved the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan because I heard that it was the pinnacle of Uchiha power. Yeah, that's what I heard, Naruto said. But I guess today settles it. The Rinnegan is just superior to the Sharingan. That Susanoo of yours is powerful, but the Rinnegan will have a technique to counter it soon, I'm certain. Sasuke shook his head. I don't exactly think so. Naruto looked over. What, you don't think the Rinnegan is a counter to the Susanoo? Sasuke shook his head. No, I mean, I don't think today proved that the Rinnegan is better. Naruto listened, intent to hear what he had to say. Sasuke continued. I sense more potential buried deeper than the Sharingan. I don't understand it, but I get the feeling that there's more than this. More than the Mangekyo Sharingan. I feel like there's more. A new evolution. Naruto scoffed. Well, of course there is. It's called the Rinnegan. Sasuke shook his head. No, I don't mean that. That's not something that comes after the Sharingan. That's what it's evolved from, not what it evolves to. I mean, I feel like there's more potential in the Sharingan alone. Naruto raised a brow. So what? You think there's some super Mangekyo Sharingan waiting in the wings? Sasuke looked down into the flames. There's so much about the Sharingan we don't know, so much that it can do that we can't explain. But I'm certain that there's more to it than the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. I sense an ultimate Sharingan, waiting just beyond the veil. Sasuke looked to Naruto. When I discover this Sharingan, we're gonna have a rematch, and when we do, I'm gonna kick your ass. Naruto smiled. I welcome it then, Sasuke. Go find your ultimate Sharingan. I'll be ready. Minato sat at his desk and looked over some papers. Unsatisfied by what he found, he stood up and walked to the file cabinet. He began to look through many different files, but still seemed unsatisfied, so he moved his search further and further back in the timeline. He didn't stop until he was at least 14 years into the past. There he found the original case file as well as many other findings from the investigation. So far, it was a cold case, but it was one that was very close to Minato. It was the one that had threatened the lives of himself and his family and caused many to die. The case of the masked individual who unleashed the Nine Tails into the village. When Minato had fought against him, he managed to sever his arm. That arm would later be brought in for autopsy to see who it could have possibly been, but the findings were inconclusive. The best minds of the Hidden Leaf were called in to look at the arm in hopes that it might somehow reveal to them the true identity of the attacker. But it was concluded that this arm was somehow prosthetic in nature. It was indeed biological, possessing rapidly healing cells within it, but the physical structure of the limb was not human. It possessed 100% human DNA, but it possessed so many types of DNA that no single donor could be found. Most prominently among these samples were those of Hashirama Senju. During that time, technology was not far enough advanced to detect any new DNA, but now DNA testing had come a long way, and it was beginning to become more viable, even if it were a long shot. "Those cells we have on ice aren't gonna last forever," a voice said to Minato as he looked through. "What do you suppose we do?" Minato asked. Jiraiya smiled. "We need to go and convince Tsunade to return to the village. If she does, her expertise should be able to help us solve this mystery." Minato nodded. But will she come back? Jiraiya shrugged. "It's worth a shot." Minato sat down in his chair and put the case file down before him. "All right, go after her. I'll send my son with you to be my stead. He'll have instructions of things he can offer her on my behalf to get her to come to Konoha." Jiraiya nodded. "All right, I'll go pick him up." Jiraiya walked the streets towards the home of the Namikaze family. He'd always endeavored to be a part of this family, but the distance at which he lived away from the village, as well as his work for Konoha in the shadows, had always kept him at a distance. Estranged, yes, but all the same still that crazy uncle that always received a king's welcome while in town. He came to the Namikaze family home and knocked on the door. Naruto would open it up and welcome him in. Jiraiya stepped in. "How are things going, Naruto? How's your mother?" "Oh, she's been tired recently, but she's doing okay." Kushina would walk into the room. "Oh, welcome, Jiraiya." Jiraiya was shocked a bit. "Kushina, you look so... She smiled. "Pregnant? Yeah, me and Minato were talking, and we knew we weren't getting any younger, so we decided to try for another." "I'm hoping it's a boy," Naruto said. "I'm gonna teach him how to do the sexy jutsu," he snickered. "It'll be great if it's a girl too, right?" Kushina asked. Naruto nodded a little. "Yes, but I really want a little brother." Jiraiya looked up at Kushina, who then lipped the words, "It's a girl, don't tell Naruto," to him. Jiraiya shook his head with an awkward smile. "Well, I'm just glad that everyone's happy and healthy. But I suppose you know what I'm here for. Naruto, we need you to leave Konoha. Your father's sending you on a mission to Tenezuka Quarters to recruit Tsunade for the investigation in the Nine Tails assault all those years ago. Do you remember what your father said it was okay to offer her?" Naruto nods. "Good, let's go." Jiraiya then began to leave with Naruto. All the while, elsewhere, Sasuke was looking through books, trying to learn everything he could about the Sharingan and its abilities. One could say it was a watered-down version of the Rinnegan, because this was true. It was derived from the Rinnegan, and the power had diminished after a while, but it had shown that it was more than just a watered-down variant because it continued to adapt. The Sharingan had begun to evolve down different paths. It was beginning to develop into something new, something special that was removed from the Rinnegan. That's what the Mangekyo Sharingan was. But despite his research, he did not find any record of the Sharingan being able to evolve past this stage without achieving the Rinnegan, which was less of an evolution and more of a reversion. But Sasuke felt adamant in his spirit that there was an evolution out there, and so he continued to read everything he could. He studied all the dojutsu's powers and abilities, the Izanagi, the Izanami, the various genjutsu, the varied set of 2 abilities, and the Susanoo. He began to grow weary and frustrated. He sat the book down and sat back in his chair on the porch and sighed. He He lifted his glass of iced tea and tried to focus on the warmth and the cool breeze blowing through. It was early summertime and far too beautiful of a day to keep cooped up inside the house all day. Is something the matter? Itachi asked. Oh, I'm just frustrated, Sasuke said. As hard as I try, I can't find any record of a form of Sharingan beyond the Mangekyo. There's never been one recorded in our history. The only thing above the Mangekyo Sharingan is the Rinnegan. Sasuke shook his head. I don't think so. I feel like there's some hidden potential that it possesses that isn't yet realized. Itachi sat there for a moment and thought about it. Well, I won't deny you your feelings, but don't burn yourself out. And please, don't become obsessive over this like you always seem to do. You've got a pair of the most powerful eyes in all of the Uchiha clan. Some of the most powerful eyes since the era of Madara Uchiha. He was the last person to possess the eternal Mangekyo. Just try to remember how blessed you are that you have what you have. Sasuke nodded. Of course. I'm not ungrateful. I know we can do more, and I have to find out what that is. Naruto and Jiraiya walked about Tanazuka quarters looking for Tsunade. If she's not dead or asleep, she's either drinking or gambling. It's the only thing she could be doing. As they walked around, they suddenly heard an alarm go off. A commotion. What was it? It didn't sound like a fearful bell, but a joyful one. A guy ran out and called to the crowd.
Come check it out! Some blonde broad just hit the jackpot on the slots on 2 different machines!
Naruto and Jiraiya looked at each other. They walked in. There were 2 buckets sitting on the ground, full of silver dollars. A woman with blonde hair, a stern look, and an absurdly large bust was attempting to sneak off with her winnings as the house manager was having engineers check the machines to see if they'd been tampered with. Jiraiya called out to her and waved his hand. Tsunade looked over to see him and rolled her eyes with visible disdain for him being there. Jiraiya rushed over along with Naruto. Wow, you won 2 slot machines at once. That's amazing. I don't know what you're here for, Jiraiya, but whatever it is, I'm not interested. Go home. Jiraiya and Naruto looked to each other. Jiraiya continued to walk with her. Is that any way to treat an old friend? Let's just talk for a while. Tsunade stopped walking and looked over. I don't care what it is you have to say, Jiraiya. I don't want any part of it. Go home. She then began to walk off. Jiraiya called out to her. At least hear us out, for old time's sake. We're still friends, aren't we? Tsunade stopped walking for a moment and sighed. She looked down and shook her head before looking back at Jiraiya for a moment. She then motioned him to follow her with her head. She led them to a bar where she sat her 2 buckets down by a booth. Naruto and Jiraiya sat down across from her. Someone came to their table to take an order. Your finest bottle of scotch for me, a beer for him, and an apple juice for the kid. What do you want then? Jiraiya spoke frankly. We want you to come back to Konoha for a time. It's not long. We just need you to help us run tests on a severed arm and see if we can detect who it belonged to. Tsunade shook her head. No can do. Jiraiya was confused. Why not? It's just a short trip to Konoha to run some tests. It's basically a 3-day weekend. We'll even pay you handsomely. Tsunade sat forward. The necklace around my neck alone is worth more than anything your Hokage can offer me. Do you not see these buckets of money at my feet? No, I don't need any of that. She sat back and took another swig. Normally, I'd actually agree to this, but not today of all days. Jiraiya looked at Naruto in confusion, who offered him the same look. The two then looked back at Tsunade as Jiraiya asked what came up that was holding her back. Tsunade looked down at the buckets at her feet. This happened. Jiraiya looked at the buckets and didn't understand. Tsunade explained. I got double luck today, and by luck I mean I hit an astronomical lottery. In my experience, luck is always in balance. If something astronomically good just happened to someone, then somewhere very close to me, something astronomically bad is about to happen. And I don't want to be there when it happens, which is why I'm going straight home to pack up and leave this town and venture out into the wilderness to live for a while. Jiraiya scoffed. You can't be serious. Tsunade smiled. Of course, I believe it. Naruto then spoke. Okay, perhaps that's so, but then again, it's obvious to me that you're a gambling woman, are you not? Tsunade looked to Naruto. Yes, I am. What of it? Naruto smiled. So often you go up against the house when gambling, but what if I gave you the chance to become the house? Tsunade sat forward, intrigued by this little guy's idea. Go on, I'm listening. Naruto continued. My father's been looking for more ways to increase revenue for the village, besides just shinobi missions. We want to invite people to come to our town. We're considering upgrading our entertainment district by adding in a mega casino, something to draw people in from across the land of fire. Imagine owning your own private casino. I know you said you've got enough money that you never need to work again, yet you still gamble. That tells me you're not gambling because you want more money, but the threat that you could lose it. That's what draws you in, the thrill of the game, and that's what my father authorized me to offer you. Naruto pulled a folder from his pack and slid it across the table. Tsunade opened it and began to read it. You would be totally in charge of the house, play to your heart's content, set up games, competitions, watch people lose their life savings, watch some poor schmo off the street with $5 walk in, become a millionaire, and then lose it again that night. This is what I offer you. A thrill beyond anything you can find here. All you gotta do is take one last bet against fate. A bet that you can go to Konoha for a few days, complete your job, and get out before whatever you think is gonna happen happens. What do you say? Tsunade began to smirk. She looked at Jiraiya. I like this one. But the thing Naruto didn't realize is that maybe fate was moving right then and there. And he didn't know just how close to home it had hit. As Minato sat there at his desk, an uneasy feeling came over him. A bad feeling. An omen that something was not right in his village. He didn't know why, but he got the sudden urge to call Kushina and tell her to get in the basement. He felt like something really bad was about to happen. As Kushina was working on supper prep, she heard the phone go off. She turned around and saw it ringing. She walked over. The caller ID showed the office of the Hokage. She picked it up. Minato, what's up? Is everything okay? I think so. I don't know, Kushina pulled up a chair and sat down. What's wrong, baby? She heard Minato huff over the transceiver. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like something is about to happen. Kushina was silent for a moment. Do you really feel like that? Is it possible that maybe you're just overworked and stressed? Are you having an anxiety attack? He was silent for a moment. I don't know. Maybe. She would smile softly. Minato, it's okay. You're the Hokage. You've been dealing with a case that was personal to you and was traumatic for us. That on top of your regular duties and the fact that we're about to have another baby, it's okay to admit that maybe you need to take a break. Minato nodded, though he didn't expect her to see it. Maybe you're right, but still, my head is swimming in fear. I just feel like something bad's about to happen. Will you at least go down into the basement for a little while and lock the door? I'm gonna come home and check on you, if for no other reason than to set my mind at ease. Kushina smiled again. Okay, baby, I'll go down to the basement. When you get here, knock on the door 5 times and I'll know it's you. Then I'll open it for you. All right, I'll be there in a second. Love you. He hung up the phone. She returned the phone to Atuk and turned around. She was sure there was nothing to worry about, but because she loved her husband, she went downstairs to wait for him, just as she said. She locked the door behind her and found a nice chair to sit on until he got back. As soon as she was about to sit down, though, she heard the knock. 5 times a set of knuckles hit the door. She giggled. What was the point of me having to come down here if you were just going to use the flying Raijin to come home, Minato? She smirked as she opened the door. Suddenly, she saw a single ruby eye peering through a swirling mask. She felt her heart stop. It was the man she saw in her nightmares. She screamed as he pushed her back into the basement. As Minato was walking the streets heading home, he looked around to make sure nothing was amiss. He looked. Kids were at play, parents were at the store, people were laughing and cheering, and life was just going on as normal. Minato himself seemed to be the only one scared right now. Even Kushina wasn't startled. Maybe he was having an anxiety attack. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was just overworked. Or so he thought, until suddenly an explosion occurred at the center of the village, and the form of a fox rose from the ground with a cry. Minato saw this and tears began to form in his eyes. No, Kushina! Sasuke was in his room studying when it happened. But suddenly, as he turned the page of his book, the entire house shook violently. Sasuke stood up and looked out the window, but saw nothing. He heard it though, an ear-piercing roar. He grabbed his kunai pouch and headband. He ran down the hallway. Looking in to see Itachi, who'd been taking a nap, his brother was already attempting to get on his Anbu gear. What's going up? He looked into the distance and saw the Nine Tails standing in the center of the village, its tails viciously whipping around, its claws tearing up the subdivisions in wrath. Itachi ran out next. As the battle began, the forces of Konoha lined up against the Nine Tails, but it became increasingly obvious that it wasn't only the Nine Tails they were fighting. Another group was there. There were 6 of them, and they all had eyes like Naruto. Each member of the strange enemy force began to devastate the village in their own way. Minato attempted to fight through, but was caught off guard by 2 of the 6 paths of pain. Kakashi was caught off guard by 1 of them, and 2 others were busy leading the charge against the Konoha forces, all while a masked man stood there on the nose of the Nine Tails. Itachi ran through, and with the power of his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he would form his Susanoo, its size being roughly equal to the Nine Tails. He would display his sword of Totsuka and prepare to use it to seal the Nine Tails away for a time until they could properly seal it back into Miss Kushina. But as the flaming sake blade drew closer to the Nine Tails, Itachi found that the blade passed right through the beast, without causing any damage. He saw the tiny man on the nose, his Mangekyo Sharingan glowing as it seemed he was attempting to pass his powers onto the Nine Tails he was obviously controlling. Sasuke ran to the center of the town and saw the fight. He witnessed Itachi facing the Nine Tails. He ran to help, but was caught off guard by the Diva Path of the Six Paths of Pain. Sasuke activated his Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He didn't even offer to speak with the man, as this was an act of war. Whoever he was, even if his eyes were the same as Naruto's, he would fight and defeat this man. Sasuke activated his Susanoo as well and began to strike out at the man, but he pushed him back with Almighty Push. The Diva Path then formed meteorites in the air with the Chibaku Tensei technique and began to rain them down on Sasuke's Susanoo. Each meteor struck with enough force to bring the giant avatar to its knees. Sasuke raised his hand up. The crossbow attached to the forearm of his Susanoo began to fire bolts up into the sky at the incoming debris, firing into the core to break it into harmless rubble. Sasuke then turned to the Diva Path to continue his attack, only to find that it had summoned the Geto statue, which then proceeded to strike out at Sasuke's Susanoo. Sasuke was pushed back again by this. The Geto statue was the strangest thing he had ever faced. It felt as if it were made of wood, and yet it moved. Sasuke had read about wood release and wondered if he were fighting a wood golem or the true several thousand hands. But it was impossible to be the latter, as the latter was, as the name implied, capable of having many extra arms, and it was said to be of a size that was capable of dwarfing even the Nine Tails. And this statue was roughly similar in size to Sasuke, but slowly he felt it absorbing his chakra. What was this? Suddenly, his Susanoo, weakened, was smashed through by the statue's fist, a fist that punched straight into Sasuke, sending him flying straight to a building. Sasuke lost consciousness there. The statue would then turn around and grab Itachi's Susanoo by the nape and begin to pull it away, draining its chakra while doing so. The Nine Tails would then raise its hand and strike out at Itachi, piercing through the Susanoo with its claw before impaling Itachi on the claw as well. Pierced clean through by the Nine Tails, Itachi's Susanoo vanished. He was then flung off the Nine Tails' finger as if he were nothing more than a bug. Itachi went flying and hit the ground. Sasuke was unaware of what was happening. All he saw was darkness, and all he heard was the screaming of others near him. And then, even that faded. Naruto, Jiraiya, and Tsunade would return home to find the village in ruins. "What happened here?" Jiraiya cried out, looking at the destruction. "It seems we couldn't outrun fate," Tsunade said. Naruto looked around at the destruction. He asked one of the people sitting near a shop currently putting ice to his head what had gone on. The man looked up. "The Nine Tails." Naruto heard that and immediately began to worry for his mother. He ran home only to find a crater where it once had been. Sasuke himself would awaken in the hospital where his father would be waiting for him. His father broke the news. For days there was nothing but lamenting. Minato was the one who was in charge of presiding over the memorial service for the dead, but even he didn't possess the strength to do so. He took one look at a grave. It said, "Forever together, mother and child, Kushina Uzumaki and Shoyu Namikaze." Minato fell to his knees by the grave, and that look of utter despair was all he had to say to get the point across. The service was silent, as those who lost or were close with someone who had lost could hardly believe that such a thing happened. Naruto walked up to his father and knelt down. He'd never seen him like this. "Father?" Minato was silent, simply staring down at the grave, or perhaps through it, as if trying to see the ones beneath the ground. Naruto's eyes began to water up as he hugged onto him. Minato's own eyes began to overflow with tears as they continued to embrace. A distance away, Hinata watched. She so desperately wanted to say something to comfort Naruto, but now was not the time. She couldn't and shouldn't interfere in their time of mourning together. Over to the side, Sasuke was kneeling down beside Itachi's grave. His hand lowered down to grasp the freshly dug dirt. He lifted it up and looked at it before putting it back down. Sakura would walk up behind him. She would kneel down behind him and hug him from behind. Her face was resting on his right shoulder for a moment. She then spoke. "Are you okay, Sasuke?" "I'm gonna kill them," he said. Tears ran down his angry face as he grit his teeth. "The people who did this to Itachi, I'm gonna kill them." Naruto felt guilty for not being there. Much like the assailant, according to Sasuke, Naruto possessed the Rinnegan, and if he had been there, maybe he could have done something to stop it. But Minato continued to tell Naruto that neither of them could have known this was going to happen, and Naruto was away on mission at the time. But Naruto vowed to grow stronger until they could figure out where these people were. Then, Naruto would kill them. Naruto and Sasuke would begin sparring together quite a bit, constantly attempting to grow stronger, but they felt as if they were plateauing, that there wasn't much they could do to improve upon what they already had. It was then that Jiraiya approached. "If you want to learn some real powerful stuff, I recommend going to train with the Toad Sages of Mount Myoboku." He would point at Naruto. "Those eyes. The great sage Gamamaru knew the Sage of Six Paths personally. Perhaps he can help you further access the powers within your eyes." He then looked to Sasuke, and if there's anything beyond the power of the Mangekyo, then Gamamaru will know about it. Ask him your questions on top of training to acquire Sage Mode, and I'm sure you'll walk out of the mountain 10 times stronger than before. Naruto and Sasuke then proceeded to venture out to Mount Myoboku to learn about the Great Toad Sages. Once they arrived, they would come to Gamamaru. They would each offer their respects to the elderly toad. "We're here to learn from you, Great Toad Sage," Naruto would say. "I'm Naruto Namikaze, and this here's my brother-in-arms, Sasuke Uchiha." Gamamaru would smile. "Oh, are you the two that Jiraiya boy sent a message to me about? The two promising shinobi?" Gamamaru sat forward and looked at Sasuke Uchiha. "And you must be the one with the eyes of the sage. Can you display them for me? The Rinnegan. I desire to look upon them once again as I did in ages long past." Sasuke looked up to the sage. "Forgive me, Your Honor, but I am not the one that possesses the Rinnegan. That would be Naruto." Naruto would smile and close his eye. When he opened them next, they'd be ringed and the color of lavender. The Great Toad Sage would smile and sit back. "Ah, seeing those eyes surely brings back old times. What a wonderful set of eyes you possess, and powerful too. It's been so long since I've seen the sage's eyes." The Great Sage would clap his hands together. Two toads would appear. "Please, take these two out to the mountain and begin teaching them these sage arts." The two toads would bow their heads in respect and motion Naruto and Sasuke to follow. Naruto and Sasuke would then begin the process of learning Senjutsu. They would both train for weeks to tap into Sage Jutsu. At this time, they managed to awaken their Sage Mode, but were not yet done honing it. Tapping into Sage energy was the easy part. It was learning to control it so you didn't kill yourself that was hard. And so they trained for months to master this technique. During this time, they balanced it with learning other techniques. Naruto would ask about any abilities that Gamamaru knew that the Rinnegan could do. Gamamaru would mention something not too dissimilar from Sasuke's Susanoo. It was called Six Paths Kunitsukame. It was a chakra avatar made of golden chakra, and it would take the form of a man with 6 arms and 3 faces. These faces would then proceed to form various weapons out of the many Truth Seeker orbs hovering behind the being. Naruto and Sasuke would further study the history of the Sage of Six Paths, including the origin of the tailed beasts and the 10 tails itself. Sasuke would eventually speak with Gamamaru and ask him about his Sharingan's potential, if there was a way to evolve it further. Gamamaru would surprise him by telling him that there was, and that very few ever knew about it because the process was hard to complete, and that the key aspect to it had become feared. If this process was used without proper preparations, it could result in eternal blindness. Gamamaru would tell Sasuke that it was hard to do, but if he could accomplish it, his power would grow substantially. Sasuke agreed to do it. The sage would tell Sasuke that he must find a saltwater lake. He would offer Sasuke a map and tell him the rest of the ritual and send 2 toads to assist him. Sasuke traveled down to the lake and there he would enter the water. Submerging himself in the cold water and coming up, he'd proceed to wash his left eye, then his right, before also washing his nose. He would then weave multiple hand signs together in accordance with what the sage told him, all while one of the toads shakes an onusa above his head. Sasuke would weave the hand signs: ram, boar, dog, snake, rat, monkey, dragon, tiger, bird, horse, rabbit, ox. He did all of this while memorizing the sensation and moment with his Sharingan. He would stop for a second and then once again go under the water. He would come up a second time, washing his left eye, then his right, and finally his nose all over again, before repeating these same hand signs in the same order while the onusa above his head was dangling the same way. As he does this, Izanami activates. Sasuke had successfully activated the first required jutsu with his left eye. Then, with his right, he casts Izanagi. This was an important thing to do, as the Great Toad Sage told him that by casting Izanami first, he was ensuring that he could infinitely loop Izanagi, which would come in handy later, as he was personally reprogramming his Sharingan right now to reach completion. All of this was done as Sasuke was taking in Senjutsu, and now with Izanagi he was using it the way it was meant to be used. The Toad Sage had told him that Izanagi had been a practical usage of the Six Paths creation of all things technique, and with it he could blur the line between reality and illusion. What Sasuke desired would be achieved if he did this correctly, but he would need to concentrate. With Izanagi activated, he forced it to rewrite his Mangekyo Sharingan and awaken the hidden potential within. After doing so, he would once more dive under the water, come up, wash his left eye, his right, and then his nose before weaving the hand signs a 3rd time, with the onusa being waved above him. He would then release the genjutsu and ninjutsu he had cast upon himself with a separate hand sign. This was the moment of truth. If he had failed, he would be forever blinded. But if he succeeded, he would awaken the final evolution of the Sharingan. He felt a change, and in a moment, his eyes dulled in light. I failed, he thought. But suddenly he'd feel a massive throb, as suddenly the skies above began to thunder. The water around him circulated as he arose from the water in his Susanoo. Suddenly beside him was an image of a sun and an image of a moon. The two toads were astounded by this. Sasuke would return to the ground. Once more, the dojutsu's pattern changed. He was astounded by it. He felt it. This was the thing he'd been searching for over the past few years. This was it. And so he named it, the Kyukyoku Sharingan. After this, Naruto and Sasuke came to the conclusion that their training was successful. They would return to Konoha, and there they'd be met by Kakashi, who told them that they needed to go to the Hokage's office. Once there, Minato began to explain to them what they had learned. Tsunade ran her tests on the arm and found some matches. Tsunade appeared too and began to speak. We were going at it from the wrong angle. There were too many sets of DNA to wade through, so I began to test the chakra signatures within and match them to any known shinobi. We managed to get a hit. Naruto was surprised. Who did it match to? Me, Kakashi said. The chakra signature had a match to me. Naruto looked to Tsunade. I'm confused. So was I, Tsunade said. I almost threw the readings out. But that's when I realized that Kakashi has more than just his own chakra circulating within. He possesses the chakra of Obito Uchiha due to his Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi stood there for a moment. I hated the idea that Obito could still be alive, having turned on the village like this, but it makes too much sense. Minato then began to speak. Kakashi and the one who killed Kushina each have one Sharingan from a set, and their abilities are linked together. Kakashi's teleportation technique and the assailant's teleportation technique, they're the same. So we've been testing things out, and we found that we're actually capable of reversing the technique and teleporting ourselves to Obito's location. And wherever he is, you can be sure that both Pain and the Ninetales are there too. We're currently getting a strike squad together. Minato stood. He walked over and put his hands on Naruto's and Sasuke's shoulders. I want you two to be the ones heading up the attack. I have faith that each of you will be able to defeat them with your new techniques. Now, go prepare. We're launching the attack as soon as you're ready. And so the two of them went to get ready. Both were slightly nervous of what could happen, but they swallowed their fear and kept moving forward. After they'd prepared, the two returned to Minato, who would have Kakashi open the portal. The strike squad would then pass through into the realm of Kamui. Once they were all inside, Kakashi would lock onto Obito's location and teleport them all in. Within a moment, they were in Amagakure, in the Palace of Pain. Obito and most of the Akatsuki were here. Kakashi would stay behind with most of the strike force to face off against Obito as well as the other Akatsuki members, buying Naruto and Sasuke time. They would rush to face Pain, bursting into his throne room. You killed my mother, Naruto shouted at him, and you killed my brother, Sasuke said. The Divapath stood from his throne. I taught you something. Something that the whole world needs to learn. Something I think I need to teach you again. Suddenly, the other 5 members of the Six Paths appeared. Naruto and Sasuke stood back to back. Remember what Gamamaru said, Naruto told Sasuke. None of those are the real Pain. They're remotely connected nearby. We just need to find the real body. Sasuke nodded. Naruto's Rinnegan activated as Sasuke's Kyokyoku Sharingan activated as well. Both boys activated Senjutsu and launched into battle. Sasuke would cast a Materasu on the Naraka path first, hoping to nullify the one that could heal the others. Naruto would use Universal Pull to drag the Ashura path to him before planting a Truthseeker orb right into its midsection, blowing the mechanical monstrosity away. The Preta path would latch onto Naruto to absorb his chakra, only to be turned to stone when Naruto fueled it with too much Senjutsu. He would then smash the half-toad statue to pieces. Suddenly, the Diva path rushed Sasuke, smashing him into the wall. He would then take a chakra rod, raise it above his head, and plunge it into Sasuke's heart. Naruto would cry out. Sasuke's lifeless body laid there, but only for a moment before disappearing and reappearing behind Pain. Sasuke would knee Pain in the back of the head. This left Pain questioning things. How was it that this had happened? Was it a substitution jutsu? No, it was Izanagi. Pain stood and turned around, only to realize that Sasuke had not gone blind by it. Surprised, Sasuke said, I can use it as much as I want without going blind. The only downside is a cooldown. Sasuke would rush in with Chidori, but would be pushed by Almighty Push. Naruto would plant truth-seeking orbs into the other paths, destroying them. Naruto would then rush to Sasuke to help. Diva was beginning to feel overwhelmed, so he summoned the Ghetto statue. Sasuke would summon his Susanoo, and Naruto would summon his Six Paths Kunitsukami to battle against it. They would strike out, causing damage to the statue. Naruto would then throw a kunai at the Diva path. The Diva path thought it was a pathetic attempt to attack him, and as he was ready to knock it away with his hand, he'd be surprised when Sasuke activated Ameno Techikara to switch places with it. He would punch Pain in the face and cause him to roll back before leaping off and once more taking the form of his Susanoo. Together, Naruto and Sasuke would push back the statue. Sasuke would raise his Susanoo's fist and coat it with Amaterasu, controlling it with Kagutsuchi, preparing to smash Pain. But Pain was ready. What he didn't realize though is that it was all just a feint. Naruto threw another kunai and Sasuke switched places with it again and would smash Pain in the face with his fist once more, before jumping off and reassuming the form of his Susanoo. It was then that Pain began to experience these same sensations over and over and over again. He'd been caught in Izanami. In reality, he was just standing there, motionless. Naruto and Sasuke lowered to the ground and began to search for the chakra pattern of the true Pain. Opening a door, they would find him standing there with Konan. Sasuke would easily kill Konan with Amaterasu. After all, paper is very flammable. Naruto, however, is the one to finish off Pain. And with Nagato dead, the true threat was at an end. Kakashi managed to kill Obito, although not without physical and emotional wounds opening up, and the rest of the Akatsuki were defeated. Naruto would then find and secure the Nine Tails, sealing it into himself with Six Paths' coffin seal. Not long after, they'd return to the village to a hero's welcome. With the Nine Tails restored to them, the threat of war would fade and the village would begin to heal. Naruto would eventually locate Sasuke in the arena at the center of the Forest of Death. They were all alone. "You called me here?" Naruto asked. Sasuke turned around and smiled. "Remember when we were here the last time?" Naruto nodded. "You gave me one of the greatest fights of my life. I was hardly able to beat you. I thought I had once and for all proven that the Rinnegan was superior to the Sharingan." "But do you remember what I said later that night?" Sasuke asked. Naruto thought back. "That the Sharingan maybe had an ultimate evolution." Sasuke nodded. "Yes, and now I've been proven right." He displayed his Kyukyoku Sharingan. This is the ultimate form of the Sharingan. Would you care to test if your theory that the Rinnegan is more powerful holds any water? Naruto would close his eyes and activate his own Rinnegan. He would stare through his brows and smile. "I'd like nothing more." And I think I'm gonna leave that battle up to your imagination. Really, it depends on what you think is better. For reference, I'll tell you what the abilities of the Kyukyoku Sharingan are. It possesses all of the abilities of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but also includes Izanagi and Izanami, each with an hour to cool down, as well as the ability Ameno Tejikara. That against a Rinnegan. What do you think would win? Tell me down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this series with me. I absolutely loved writing it. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to show us. It helps us here at the Amagi and allows us to continue bringing you more wonderful stories like this. Until next time, peace out.